So I hope this is working correctly.
All right.
Let's just make sure.
Only children know me because they see me at EB Games.
Yeah.
And then I run into them at conventions, and they go, "Oh my God, you're the girl that works at Nintendo," and I'm like,
You would think they roll up to you and be like, "Where's my pre-order at? Where's my pre-order?"
So
at?
speaking
Forgot
of
the
Daniel's
code, girl. What happened?
jacket, Daniel buying his jacket specifically for Halloween and then just keeping it because he loved it. Did you buy your shirt because of how much you loved Smash Bros?
"Yeah, Smash is the best game ever. I don't know what you're talking about."
Yeah.
Hell yeah!
Oh, we got Jorge and Gus and DJ. Oh, Danny, your husbando's in the chat already.
Oh, really? Which one?
Mistress. I'm pretty sure RPG is technically his husbando.
Yeah.
Oh.
He's got like 3 people that fight over who his biggest fan is.
The thing with Denny is that he is my adopted son, so he cannot be my husbando.
That's you were drunk when you were giving birth to him. And then on the birth certificate, instead of just writing,
I don't think that's adopted, Jesse.
Instead of just writing Danny Jr., you wrote Denny.
Are we live right now?
Yeah.
Oh yes. My God, Jesse. That's it.
Oh no.
Yes, no, see, the DJ in the chat says this. I love your show Sunday nights. That's it. Is it Sunday? I guess it's usually.
It is Sunday nights.
It is Sunday.
That is true.
I'm gonna put on this.
It's like Saturday Night Live, but nowhere near as good.
Yeah, and we don't have Andy Samberg and Adam Sandler.
But we have Andy Burgers
and Sandy Sandbergs.
But we
Colonel
have
Sanders.
Oh Lord, what a birth, Ivan. My brother's.
What a birth!
I love your hair, Kayla, says Jessex.
It's a lie.
Think.
Oh wow.
I love that phrase. Oh Lord, what a birth! Like I need to just take that in my pocket. I need to use anytime I'm surprised about anything. I'm just say, "Oh Lord, what a birth!"
Yeah.
Wow.
What a time.
Okay, yeah, I think there's enough people here. We can start.
Yeah, let's get the show.
You guys ready?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. This is the part I don't like. All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Hylian Gamescast, episode 98. Today, we're going to be talking about a rumor of some upcoming, or possibly upcoming, canceled Nintendo 3DS games that will possibly become Nintendo Switch games. Don't really know how to word it, but you guys will see what we're talking about. And as part of the discussion, we're going to be talking about some 3DS games that we would like to see come to the Nintendo Switch eventually. And kind of speculate on what some of those canceled 3DS games could have been. And we also have an interview with JJ, or some of you all may know him from his username, GamerWithGains. So, skipping right to it with the introduction. JJ, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself for some of those who may not know who you are.
Sure. I'm pretty sure there's a lot of people right now either watching or listening to this now who have no idea who. They're probably looking at this like, who the heck is this guy? Like, what?
Who's this guy?
Why?
He's got
He looks like a Goron. So anyway, the thing is, I'm Jake James Lugo. Okay, everybody calls me JJ for short. I'm a games journalist / games media person / content creator / writer / podcaster and all this other stuff all rolled up into one. I do a lot of stuff. I do a lot of things, and hardly anybody has really known about it. But basically, I do a lot of videos on YouTube. Like almost every single week, I review games constantly. I talk about games. I love being part of the conversation about games. I do podcasts every week as well. I have a weekly podcast show called Boot Up, a video game podcast with my friend Taylor Lyles, where we talk about all the gaming news and stuff. In addition to that, I'm also an IGN freelancer. I write guides for IGN, and I've written guides already for IGN at this point over the last 2 to almost 3 years. And I've even done a review for IGN. I've done also videos for IGN as well, a couple times here and there. But in addition to that, I'm also the senior editor of thecoalition.com. I write reviews, I do videos, unboxings, again, interviews. I go to events like E3, PAX, PSX, Comic-Con, your Comic-Con. The list goes on. Bottom line, I do a lot of stuff, and guys should really know about it because there's a lot of dope stuff. But again, it's a lot of great things that I know a lot of you guys that are into video games really love. So that's what I do. I'm out here doing things.
Yeah, it's you're really everywhere is the best way that I could put it. But you mentioned your podcast. Where and when, I guess, like what day of the week, what time could people tune into that
Sure.
if they're interested
Sure.
in checking out new
The
episodes?
podcast, it's called Boot Up, a video game podcast. You could actually listen to it in a couple spots. You can listen to it on Anchor. You can listen to it on Spotify. We have an iTunes version coming out very soon. Again, we've been trying to wait for iTunes to get their stuff together. It's just like, again, the whole process, putting it out there, it just takes a minute. But it goes up every Monday morning, early in the morning too. So like around 7 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, maybe, or 6 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. It depends on when Taylor uploads it. But by 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, you guys will have your podcast for the entire week that covers all the gaming news. We recently just had an interview with one of the the League of Legends players that was banned not too long ago with Blizzard and all that ongoing news and stuff. We try to get a bunch of cool people on there every once in a while. We talk a lot about gaming news. We talk about a lot of gaming related topics. We even talked a little bit about gaming journalism, about etiquette, interacting with other games media people, covering games, the idea of reviewing games and doing all this other stuff that us games journalist people would usually do outside of what you would see from YouTubers and other content creators. We get deep into it and stuff, but it's a fun show. It lasts a little bit under an hour, so it doesn't take too long to kind of dive into, especially if you're doing a commute or something, if you're going to work, or if, again, you're just hanging around doing stuff. You can listen to it and just get a whole bunch of great gaming discussion in there.
All right, and you mentioned going into the etiquette of video game journalism and stuff, and you have a lot of local conventions, which you also mentioned. But you go to a lot of different local conventions and some of the bigger conventions. And what are some of the panels that if someone were to see you at one of your panels, what are some of the stuff that you talk about, or some of the people that you also have on your panel?
Oh, I do, again, a bunch of stuff, man. It's a ridiculous amount of stuff. Like, I've been going to conventions throughout I'm going on now 10 years in my career in the games media and games journalism, like getting close to the decade by this January. And out of those 10 years, like, again, a good number of them, I've been attending events both locally and nationally. Again, going to like PAX, going to PSX, E3, etc. For the local conventions, when I'm hosting panels or when I've been a guest in a few spots, I'll usually host panels, talking about what we do and exactly how to do it. Like, one of the things I found that was interesting was that a lot of people that usually host panels like this don't always give the information of what they do and how to do it to the people that want to get into this stuff. They're usually either holding it too close to the chest, or they're always like complaining about how hard it is or how tough it is, or about other stuff that might not be something that people care about when they're listening to this. I try to give the information up front, and I try to make it fun, and I try to make it interesting, and more importantly than not, try to actually have a conversation with the people, a real conversation and a real discussion with them, so that way they could get something out of it. Not just in the panels I do, but in all the content that I'm a part of, my videos, my podcasts. I try to, be consistent with that all the time. But at the panels themselves, like, I'll do stuff like that. When I was just at LumiCon 2019 not too long ago, I had 3 panels that I was hosting, one of which was an epic Final Fantasy panel. It was a fan panel celebrating everything about Final Fantasy, talking about the entire series. And I was even giving stuff away. I had a bunch of stuff, including Final Fantasy themed, goodies, like themed decks from the TCG game. I even gave away a free copy and a figure of Life is Strange Before the Storm. I gave away a bunch of stuff. I had even a foam sword for Final Fantasy 14 that I got at PAX one year for Heaven Sword, one of the expansions. And I gave it away to some lucky people that just came out and asked questions and was part of the discussion. I do stuff like that because I feel like it makes it fun. I feel like it makes it interesting. It doesn't make it so like, up on your high horse and stuff. It makes it something that people want to be a part of, but also feel like they're going to get something out of when they go to them.
Yeah, you. I believe you follow the same people. I'm sure by now everyone knows who they are, follows them. But the kind of funny people with Greg Miller and everyone.
I know them.
Yeah, they're the people that I'm sure a lot of people that watch the podcast know. They're the people that inspired me to start my YouTube channel and everything. And if they don't, that's obviously where the Game Over Jesse, Game Over Greggy thing came from, was his username. And I was lucky enough, I think maybe I just caught him on a nice day or something. I have no idea, but he came on no, I wouldn't really say it was a podcast at the time. It was before I started any of the actual podcasts, but he just came on for an interview on the YouTube channel a long, long time ago. And then we kind of stayed in touch ever since. And he was one of the first people, but he's one of the favorite people, personally to me, that just because of all of the inspiration and stuff that he gave. Because just talking about something similar to what you're talking about is he would go into detail on like how he got started in the video game industry and reporting and stuff like that. And he'd give basically his life story of like how he like went to, ever since he was a little kid, he'd get like EGM in the mail and other video game magazines, and it would get him to where he would want to write about video games. Like people would ask him whenever he was a kid, like, what do you want to do for a living? And whenever he found out that like, oh wait, people get paid to write about video games, like they're playing video games and people are paying them, that's what they're doing for a job. And that got him to where when people asked him what he wanted to do, then he started saying like that is what he wanted to do. And he took journalism classes through like high school and everything, and then he went to college and graduated and everything, and then I guess he got into that little slump that a lot of people get into after college, to where like it doesn't work out for them, and he ended up oddly enough, kind of a bad story, but don't let it stop you from going to college if that's what you want to do. But his story was studied all through high school, and he went to one of the #1 ranked journalism schools in America, or maybe even the world at the time. And after he got out of college, he applied for all of these different larger video game companies and even some smaller video game journalism companies like IGN and other websites that was writing about games at the time. And he ended up not being able to get a job anywhere except at his local, his local newspaper or whatever. And then eventually he was able to get a job at IGN. And then he went on to start Kind of Funny after so many years, and that was his story. But what is your story? And I bring all that up because you mentioned that you knew him, and it kind of goes into what I was asking you with how you got started in gaming journalism and stuff. But I also want to ask, because I mentioned he was one of my favorite guests that I've had on. Who are some of, like, if you had to name your three favorite guests that you were able to have on?
There's a lot, but I could definitely narrow them down to 3. I mean, obviously, if I had to touch his top 5, he'd be amongst one of them. Because again, Greg Miller's like a giant teddy bear. I've always said that over the years. Every time I've met, he's always nice. For whatever reason, he always gives hugs. Because he's like a giant teddy bear. Again, he looks like a giant like grizzly bear. That's the best thing I could give him. Because again, it goes with his color of his hair.
Oddly enough, you mentioned grizzly bear, and I just mentioned this because grizzly bear and the hairiness and everything that kind of goes with it. But earlier he posted a picture on Instagram where he shaved the Batman logo into his chest. So he just has like a hairy Batman logo on his chest. It's it was amazing. But anyways,
but he's like that. Yeah. He's very eccentric like that. Like, again, it's just his dynamite personality. He's always friendly. He's always cool. And again, he has a lot of wisdom with a lot of the stuff that he's done, with a lot of his experience, covering games and being part of, the greater gaming community and what he's done. And another thing too, before I get into the thing that you asked me about, was that he has one of the best speeches at the Game Awards I've ever seen. And it was at a great time because he did that, because he was the one that campaigned for him wanting to win that year for Gamer of the Year, or whatever, the internet, like they chose Gamer Stories, whatever.
Yeah, he's gone up against PewDiePie and a bunch of other people. PewDiePie and all the everyone was like, no one knows who you are. You're not going to win. PewDiePie has like 50 million subscribers.
Here's the crazy thing. Had he not won, none of those other people there would have ever given the speech that he gave, and he gave the best one, giving it back and putting the shine back on the people that make the games. And I thought that was super classy and also super humble, and also it showed an example to all those other people afterwards, which some people afterwards in subsequent shows started copying and started trying to do the same thing. But it was like, okay, we see you. Yeah. But
it was giving for those who don't know, it was giving a thank you to the people in the credits after you play the game, like the people who work a week straight underpaid.
I think it was for Rise of the
to-
Tomb Raider.
Yeah.
I think it
But
was.
it's basically for the people that work like a week straight, underpaid, working overtime, just to make sure the bush in the game or a
Look
tree
good.
or something looks the way that it needs to look and behaves the way it needs to behave. The people people think
Exactly.
of voice actors and producers and stuff, but no one thinks of the person. It's like, does this tree leaf look believable? Like, do I need to make it more realistic or more cell shady? How do I do this? But it's basically the people that work on that stuff that never
Yeah.
get recognition. But go on
The
with what
thing
you were
was-
saying.
The thing is like, besides him, obviously, but if I had to choose the three just personally for me, one of which, obviously, for a lot of people that watched G4 back in the day, Adam Sessler, one of my biggest inspirations. I was religious in watching X Play all the time.
Mhm.
Him and Morgan Webb, two of my biggest inspirations.
That's
that
not an
they had
adult
as far
show.
as-
by the
You know,
way.
as far as, covering games and just like really talking about games, because covering games is the exact same thing as just having a discussion about games with your friends. The difference is it's either on camera on TV or on camera on the internet or on a podcast, audio, or whatever else on YouTube, whatever the big choice may be. It's still the same exact idea, but he really set an example for me. And the privilege I had at my first E3, I got to meet him. That was really hit me at a moment, because I saw him at E3 during the Ubisoft conference, like right before, because we were all going to the Ubisoft conference that year. And then I saw him afterwards at an after party where we finally got to talk and say what's up and stuff. And at that point, it was like that turning point for me where, besides seeing these people on TV and seeing these people in content, that they make, now I was amongst them as a peer. And that was a really big step for me. That was really humbling. I had a lot of reverence for something like that. The other one, obviously, also would be Victor Lucas. I mean, anybody that doesn't know who Victor Lucas is, he was also part of G4. He was on Judgment Day with Tommy Tallarico. Victor not only did that, he also runs Electric Playground, EPN, over in Canada right now. And he's I'm a huge fan of his work. He's another dude that's really humble. He came on my podcast show on my YouTube channel a while back, and he didn't have to do that. He was just, he wanted to talk about games. He wanted to talk about what he does with EPN. I was like, come on, that would be amazing. And we had a fantastic conversation. Now, every time that I see him at an event, I always make it a point to go say hello to him, because, again, he didn't have to do something like that. And it was something that not only showed me a level of class that, sometimes you don't always see in this industry from a lot of professionals here and there, but also because he had been in the game for so long, like doing this type of stuff, being part of the television station, talking about video games, and now he's doing stuff on the internet, or again, still doing stuff technically with TV, with EPN in Canada. But it was like someone that I felt was like super real and super genuine being a part of all this, and I thought that was awesome. And then finally, the last person, for top three that I can mention was Colin Moriarty. Colin Moriarty is, again, he was one of the founding members of Kind of Funny, but he was also at IGN with Greg Miller. That was his boy for the longest time, where, again, they were Podcasts Beyond for like years. I used to listen to that religiously as well.
Yeah, they were
And
also
the thing
living together for a
yeah,
long
they were
time
living
as well.
together, which was even crazier. Like, they were like a dynamic duo for like a very long time. And with Colin specifically, again, that was another person that, after following him for years, I finally got to talk with him, see him in person, have conversations. I had a very real conversation with Colin during New York Comic Con one year. I think it was my second New York Comic Con that I went to professionally. And we were at a bar on First Avenue in the city, and we were just talking. We were having drinks, and we were just talking. And it was just, talking about gaming stuff, talking about covering games, talking about the news at the time that was going on, the big topics of discussion. And it was just like really insane, like how real he was with me. Again, it was just like talking to another friend that you had just met. It just happened to be someone that had hundreds of thousands of followers on Twitter and social media and worked for the biggest gaming website in the entire world in some fashion. And the other thing that was really cool about that for me, which really kind of not only stuck with me for a very long time, but also kind of, pushed me to do better and more content out there, was that Colin like really showed me that it's okay to be open and blunt a little bit about your opinions about games, not necessarily be shy or kind of like, a little bit kind of reserved when it comes to talking about games and, having that conversation about them. He was one of those people that on Podcast Beyond was saying like, okay, this is how you get into the industry, but also try to be as genuine. You don't have to play every single game. You don't have to like every single game. You have to just have an opinion about it, your own formulated opinion about it, and actually contribute to the conversation as a whole. And not only makes your own unique voice and your own unique, perspective on games, but it also helps the industry and helps the community as a whole because you're contributing something positive, whether it's a critical or something that's praising out there. You're actually contributing to the greater whole, which is a cool thing. And that always stuck with me. And again, he also came on my podcast at one point and he didn't have to do that. And it was another one of those humbling experiences is like, man, like you actually care about my opinion. It's like, and again, I followed you for years as like a student of the game. And I always thought that was very, very cool.
Yeah, he had a really, really great panel at one, I forgot what kind of convention it was, but it was just called Your Favorite Game Sucks.
Oh,
and
yeah.
It's talking about all these games where everyone's like, oh, you need to play this game. It's really, really good. It's one of the best games ever.
Trash.
Yeah, and then he just, like, it was him and other people talking about games that other people would recommend. It's like, oh, this game's amazing, and then why it sucks. But before we get to the next person on your list, 𝐓𝐷, about 5 minutes ago, got very, very excited. And we have 2 donations for Daniel.
Yeah.
So, 𝐓𝐷,
It's not for me.
talk about what it was that you were so excited about.
Okay, so Daniel posted the link in the chat, but if you haven't clicked on it, please click on it because Jorge just did the most amazing fan art I have ever seen in my life. I am blown away.
Are you able to put it up on the screen? It's all of us.
So-
It's all of us.
Oh, it is all of
Yeah,
us.
Breath of the Wild.
It's all of us as the champions of Breath of the Wild, and
That's awesome.
I am loving it. So he did the group one, and then all of us individually.
Am I Rivali?
Incredible. No, I'm
did.
you're Daruk.
I'm Daru.
I'm
Okay.
Rivali. Ilya, or the Geek Apprentice, she is Mifa, and 𝐓𝐷 here is Urbosa. And it's just incredible. Actually, also good choice.
Ilya
Good
looks like
choices.
she's
actually,
straight
I
out
think
of
we
Dragon
had this
Ball.
conversation officially on our podcast before of who we would be based on who we are.
Yeah.
So this is like confirmed. Like it was a
Pretty
super
accurate.
chat. Like someone broke it down. So Jorge, thank you so much because that is so
Yeah, dude.
amazing. And I like legitimately almost started crying. Like I think you guys watched me freak out for a solid. I don't know
That's
how long
awesome.
I was freaking out for, but like literal
I'm
like
just loving
jaw drop.
This face on Jesse here. I've seen it make this face in real life. So
Have I?
I've seen that face.
Oh, wow.
Oh god. Okay, anyways. So that's my
But-
piece. If you guys haven't checked that out, do. We've pretty much all shared it probably by now, and I definitely posted it in our personal Discord and tagged Geek in it right away, and I was like, Geek, look at
Yes.
this.
Just gotta.
Alright.
She'll love it.
It looks like a drinking face.
It might be.
Like when
probably
I was,
is.
it looks like it's based off the picture where I'm trying to pick you up.
Yeah, I was just gonna say. Like Jesse's about to lift me right into the air, like he does. And we got 2 super chats, both from Denny here, because he sent a super chat, and I was like, "Send us a question with your super chat, so we'll answer it." And then he just sent another question, or he sent us the question, but with another super chat, which is not what I meant. But thank you, Denny. So he asked, "What are you guys most excited about for Sword/Shield?" I'm assuming he means Pokemon.
Yeah.
And I'm just gonna say, just like making just a gigantic, just doing the whole Gigantamax thing, just is hilarious. I just make the Pokemon big.
How big
That's
will
the new power.
Who is it? Wellord? Wellord is like, is it Wellord?
Welmer?
No, it's like a giant well Pokemon.
Yeah.
But in Pokemon
yeah.
battles, it's like the size of a normal Pokemon, but it's supposed to be like hundreds of feet long. So
What
like,
if you Gigantamax that?
yeah, like it's already supposed to be like the size of the gym or the Colosseums that they battle out. But JJ, as our guest, what are you most excited for with Pokemon?
Well, I would say that because I'm a big Squirtle/Blastoise fan, and I would hope that every Pokemon has a gigantic version of it, and I would love to see like a gigantic Blastoise but look like a Mobile Suit Gundam, because I say that's the Mobile Suit Gundam of the Pokemon world. Just give it like hydro pumps atop of hydro pumps atop of hydro pumps, and just call it MGS or MSG. Like it'd be absolutely hilarious. But besides that, I would say just again, some of the more like wild characters, because again, even though as cutesy as Pokemon can be, it has some wild characters with a lot of personality, a lot of style, you have to give them a lot of credit for that, whenever they have like the different character designs and stuff. And I'm always curious to see like how crazy and like how out there they could really go with them. Whether it's Team Rocket, Team Magma, the hero or your rival, any gym leaders, the Elite Four. I always figure like they could be really cool looking. So I'm interested to see like what other cool ones we could see pop up, or what other ones people are going to really gravitate towards or start doing like fan art of.
Did you see the in Ultra Sun? I think they were introduced in Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon, which for the record, that's what I'm most excited about, is Ultra Sword and Ultra Shield when they finally get announced.
Oh, okay.
No, that's a bad joke. But anyways, there's like Xurkitree or something like that. The Ultra Beasts. Like there's one is like halfway inspired by the clown, and then half inspired by just fireworks in general, just like how they explode and like the balls of like colors and polka dots and stuff, which is also why people think it's based off of because his costume is like very, very similar to like the polka dots and stuff. And then it's just a very, very creepy looking Pokemon. I have a video that I've been working on for like a month that I've just been halfway lazy and halfway busy on. But it compares Pokemon that could replace or could be Zelda bosses. And it uses that Pokemon specifically for like Majora's Revenge or something like that, like whatever the final form of Majora is that you fight, where he has like the whips coming out of his hands and stuff, and it just looks really creepy,
like golem looking thing.
Yeah, so it's just a very, very creepy looking Pokemon. So I'm interested to see if they do something like that in this game, or if they dial it back some, because in the last Pokemon games, like they literally went into outer space and other dimensions, and there were a bunch of alien Pokemon and stuff. Like they weren't even called Pokemon, they were Ultra Beasts is what they were referred to as. So I'm wondering if they'll dial that back, or if they'll just keep going crazier and bigger with it. Yeah, Majora's Wrath, Ivan in the chat says. But Choobs, what was your favorite thing that you're looking forward to in the games?
Every time the topic of Pokemon comes up, I get really uncomfortable really fast, and it's because I've never beaten a Pokemon game. Never beaten one.
You're not missing much.
How do you? Okay, so how do you?
Late.
How do you classify beating a Pokemon game? Is it completing the full Pokédex, catching all the Pokemon in that game, beating the Elite Four?
Like maybe 3 gyms.
Okay.
Beating the Elite Four, or getting all the gym badges?
I've done maybe 3 gyms, and only in Pokemon Yellow.
So you're like Ash when everyone else is Gary. If you guys remember the meme where it's like Ash is talking about getting some of the 8 different gyms, and Gary's like, I got all 10 or all 12 of the 8 gyms in Kanto.
I'm like that person that's never going to truly win. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm just here to hang out and have fun.
Yeah.
But in all seriousness, I did see some leaks of what the evolutions for the starters are going to look like. So hopefully, I'm like low-key hoping that there might be some truth to that. But at the other time, like I'd love to experience that myself. I know that I will, because I'm gonna have to demo the game, and I'm gonna look like a real fool if I don't actually play the game before I demo it. So.
Your contract with Nintendo depends on it.
I know. Okay, don't talk to me about Pokemon anymore.
Just give her some Squirtle Squad glasses and she's good.
Yeah, Squirtle Squad
Perfect.
glasses.
Yeah. Squirtle Squad, yeah.
So going back to you, JJ, what is say one more person that's on your list?
One more person, I guess I could say. Another one that I could say that's really shown me a lot, especially on a lot of the stuff that she's done over the years, because I followed her, and again, early in my YouTube like interview segments and stuff, and she didn't have to do that. This was before she blew up, but Andre Renee showed me that again. There's an elegance, there's also a class, and a certain level of professionalism that you could portray without having to compromise your personality or having to compromise like your unique traits and stuff, because she's been on camera a lot. She's talked about games a lot. She's worked in freelance for a lot of different, like not just, some of the few that you probably have seen her in, besides What's Good Games, but she's done a lot of different stuff over the years. And I've always admired that. She has a good hustle and also a good level of, like, again, professionalism, a good level of, like, friendliness, humor. It's just, some of that stuff, you notice things like that, if you like following a lot of different aspects of the industry and seeing a lot of different individuals, those are little things you pick up on. Is like, oh, this is pretty cool. This is something like, I could adopt into my own type of, like, my own story, my own style and such. And I always appreciated that from her. And again, she's just fun to be around. So that's one of the few other women, I guess I could say, that I've really taken a lot of examples. Again, I'm a guy, but like as a professional and someone that wants to be part of this industry, it would be her, it would be Alana Pierce, it'd be Morgan Webb, a lot of different people like that all over the place that have shown me little things, over the year.
Yeah, it's, for those who don't know, she was also part of the Kind of Funny crew for a while, and I first knew her. Yeah. Well, she was a host on the Kind of Funny Games Daily for a while. She's moved on from that since then for about a month now, I guess, maybe 2 months. But I found out who she was because every time I would go into GameStop, she was the main host that they had for, like, talking about upcoming gaming news and prices.
She did that for a long time.
Yeah, so that's how I knew who she was. And then she started doing guest appearances on Kind of Funny, and then she just joined the team for a while, and I was like, oh, that's really cool, because I was already a fan of her from, I remember working at GameStop and just, like, hearing her voice constantly. So then whenever I was listening to a podcast from Kind of Funny and her voice was there, I'm like, oh, that's really cool. Because now, instead of, like, being annoyed by her voice, not because it's an annoying voice or anything, but because it's the same promotions and commercials playing 1,000 times a day while you're working at GameStop, it's finally, like, something different coming from her. So yeah, there's I think she's one of the few people that, like, had anything to do with Kind of Funny that I haven't been able to meet or talk to. I had a chance one time, but it looked like she was busy, and it wasn't, like, at a convention or anything. Well, it kind of was at a convention. She was, like, outside she's like walking really somewhere, cool. And I was like, well, she's probably busy. I'll just say hi another time. But Daniel, Choobs, do you guys have anything that you would like to ask JJ?
Yeah, well, I'll start as so I mean, obviously you go by JJ and you work through all these out, but the handle specifically that you, like, especially when we met you at E3, that you introduced yourself as GamerWithGains. So where did that handle, like, everyone's got kind of a story of where their internet handle kind of came from. So what's the story behind, other than having gains, I guess?
Well, that's part is true. That is actually true. It's a weird, funny story because that wasn't my original handle that I first had when I started getting online and started doing stuff for YouTube was Venomous Fat Man. And that handle was a stupid name because I couldn't think of a handle to go by that was catchy enough. So I took a combination or a variation of names on my favorite Marvel character at the time and one of my favorite Street Fighter characters at the time, which was Venom and E-Honda. So I just played around with words and made Venomous Fat Man. And then after a while, I thought, like, okay, yeah, this is a really stupid name. Like, let me come up with a better concept for a channel to actually do different stuff with. And originally, my YouTube channel was going to be a blending of fitness and gaming, but in a different type of way that I didn't see done online before, because at the time, years ago, earlier in my career, I want to say over 5 to 7 years ago, I want to say, where I saw a lot of different channels were trying to implement gaming into, like, their health and fitness stuff, but it was very gimmicky. It was almost very stereotypical and almost insulting in a lot of ways. I was like, oh, so this person's a gamer, they're working out, they're playing Call of Duty all the time, they're talking this way, they're doing these certain things, they're trying to appeal to that certain demographic. I was like, no, that's not what I want to do, because I'm a gamer that is a little bit much more broader and open. I'm a jack of all trades when it comes to gaming, master of all almost. And the reason being is because I like going to different genres and not just to one thing. Because I love games as an art form. I love games as, like, a medium that I could just enjoy, not just, play it and be part of it and implement it into things just to get a, clap from everybody else or get approval from everybody else. That's what I was seeing a lot of. So with the channel, I tried to do a lot of fitness, like working out stuff and exercise stuff, and talk about things that could help benefit gamers in a way that would not only benefit their lives, but also be easy to adopt and easy to implement in different ways. One of the things I did, which is one of my biggest videos on my YouTube channel now, is that, different ways to kind of like warm up your gaming hands and prevent your hands from sweating, as you're gaming when you're holding your controller. And I talked about different stuff like that. And it's for some reason that ended up being one of my biggest videos after an extended period of time. Like when it first went up, people didn't care about it, but then over time, I guess people started to discover it. It got over 150K at least last time I checked. And then I was like, oh, this is pretty cool. But again, the rest of the video content that I put up on there didn't really work out. People didn't really want to see working out videos or care about, exercise or health and wellness videos. They cared more about gaming. And that was the thing that was really driving a lot of YouTube at the time, because then you start to see guys like PewDiePie, like Markiplier, like Angry Joe, and all these other guys that were into gaming start to really blow up. And they were doing other things that were more focused on gaming with their own personalities. And I was like, okay, I've been on YouTube for a long time now and set off. So let me change things up. And then I just started focused strictly on gaming and my thoughts and my opinions and my perspective about video games. And then obviously trying to implement everything else, which is where I'm at now, which, I've kind of abandoned those two usernames because I thought they were whack. I thought they were really stupid. So I just put my own name into it. And that was another thing too, because for being on the internet, and I think you guys can relate to as well at some point, it was very intimidating to put your own name out there, very intimidating to put your own personality, your own, persona out there as you as an individual. This is why a lot of people earlier in YouTube and other days of the internet really only went by aliases. And that was something that I kind of tried to do at one point, but I was like, you know what? If I'm going to really dive into all this, I'm going to put all myself into this. So I might as well put my name out there and become, somewhat of a public figure when it comes to this type of stuff. And be it as it may, whatever comes, we'll deal with it from there. And that's where we're at right now. So again, I just put my name out there and just put myself out there as opposed to just a silly alias.
Mm-hmm. There's a couple things that your story reminds me of. I know that was your question to Daniel, so I apologize. Yeah. But I have a friend who he has a similar YouTube channel, but he started a YouTube channel for similar ideas. He went to college for like philosophy and like a lot of mental health stuff, but then he also works as like a physical trainer and stuff, and he's really into just like mental well-being and mental health and stuff, as well as physical health and everything. And he first hit me up a long time ago to talk about Zelda on my channel, because he had a lot of he wanted to talk about the philosophy of Zelda was the way that he put it. And whenever I started talking to him, his display picture at the time was him, and he had like a pet parrot, and he was just like making a muscle with his parrot on his muscle, and I'm like, his arm is as big as my head. Like, this is insane. But he had like a crazy, it was the only time that I've ever seen someone be able to perfectly balance being able to like have their gaming life, their work life, their fitness life, and everything all like perfectly balanced, to where like he's able to work out and do everything that he had a passion for. He had time to like play the games and stuff that he wanted to, and I'm like, he has his schedule down packed. But it really reminded me of his YouTube channel. I think ironically his YouTube was Lazy Lion or something like that at the time.
Lazy.
Yeah.
The irony there.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Seriously.
And then, that's what was the other thing that I was trying to think of?
No, man.
That is funny.
I don't know. But you Daniel, you mentioned he introduced himself as GamerWithGains. And it was for a while. Like, the reason that I know who you are is because I think at first I knew you from Instagram, maybe. Because
I commented on one of your things at one point, because I followed you and I watched point, and then again we have mutual friends, in different avenues and stuff, so that's how we connected, and eventually we met because I was like, oh hey,
you messaged and asked like where we were so we could meet up, because we were both at E3, and there was quite a few people that was messaging to hang out and stuff, or to meet up, and I was also messaging like randomly saying like, well, this is where we're at, if you want to say hi, come by and stuff. And then whenever I was able to meet you, and then everyone else was able to meet you and get introduced to you as well.
Yeah.
It kind of
Behind the Nintendo booth.
You rolled up on him on the
Magic happens.
Nintendo line.
yeah.
He's waiting there to play Link's Awakening. I was like, "What's good? How's it going?"
No, I was gonna say it just sucks that like we didn't have time for like hang out after E3 or
Next time.
after
Next time we
hours
do.
and
Next
stuff,
time
but-
we got to take you guys over to the Denny's that's E3, the
Denny's.
legendary Denny's. At E3. I always get poked fun at because of that, but there's a Denny's by the LA Convention Center that's like the most legendary Denny's of E3 because not only is the food good, but also because most of the people that are at E3, like Dez and like people that you would know, usually go to that Denny's, and somehow randomly they'll show up. So you'll see like a bunch of like Nintendo guys just go there for breakfast. It's
That's-
like really fun.
That's almost how it was.
That's awesome.
You mentioned
I'm
how
really conflicted because you just said Denny's and good food in the same sentence.
You have to understand, it's just that Denny's. It's not all Denny's. Okay, just want to make that clear for the people listening in the back. It's just that Denny's that's just special. I'm
In
just
fact, I
saying.
think I said that out loud and my boyfriend gagged in the background.
It's like, oh God. It's like, no, tell him, assure him, this is a good Denny's.
yeah. But earlier, like you mentioned that like all the people hanging out there, and then earlier you mentioned how Greg, every time that you meet him, he's like all huggable and lovable and stuff, and that's how it was. It was before like the night. No, it was a couple of nights before E3. We went to this bar in Hollywood called the Scum and Villainy Cantina.
Oh,
and
man,
it
I wanna
says
go there
Star
so
Wars.
bad.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Kevin
That was
Smith.
a good-
I know about it because Kevin Smith always
The
podcasts
podcasts that they do
yeah.
there.
Yeah.
Sadly, he wasn't the night that we were there, but when we were there, one of our friends, Gibbs, he was in the chat earlier, he still might be, he was sitting on my side of the table, and he was like, "Oh, Jesse, isn't that Greg?" And I'm like, "No, it doesn't really look like him." But then, like, I'm used to seeing Greg from, like, his IGN days and podcasts and stuff, so I've seen him, like, a few times in person, but like, you don't really remember that. You just remember like how you're used to seeing him and stuff, which is like behind a desk, so you don't really see him. And he's lost a lot of weight since like he first started his podcast and stuff. So I didn't recognize him, but Gibbs was like, "Yeah, that's him." And then he came up and he noticed we were looking at him or something, and because it was just walking in, but he was there with the EA because he hosted the EA panel the next morning,
Yeah.
and he was there with the EA people, the producers and
Yeah.
stuff on the.
You guys had your warm embrace.
Yeah. He was like, "I'm sorry, who are you guys again?" And I was like, "It's Jesse, Game Over Jesse." He was like, "Oh my god!" And then he gave the hug and everything.
You got the
real.
same name.
You just said Jesse, and then he's
Yeah.
like, "Game over, Jesse."
Yeah,
like
yeah.
he made a connection there. So that was just a really cute moment.
That's how it always is at E3.
Yeah.
That's how it always is. And then the funny thing is how you mentioned that. There's that bar right across the street, okay, at the other hotel from the LA Convention Center that everybody goes to. Everybody converges there because it's so close to the convention center. So like
Right.
late at night, you know, when
Which place
again
is it?
E3's it's I think it's the Figaro. I believe it's it's literally right across the street from LA Live. And it's right there. Everybody that is at E3, everybody, literally everybody goes to that spot. So we'll go there late at night and you'll see people from IGN, from GameSpot, from Rock Paper Shotgun, Polygon, Way Forward, a bunch of YouTubers just randomly just hanging out, either having drinks, eating food, and just chilling out, you know, because everybody's gone through the day of E3. And then when you're not working on content, you know, you just want to chill because you only get to see some of these people like maybe once a year.
Yeah.
You know, that's the spot to go to, and it's always a fun time with things like that. That's one of the best things about E3 besides the games and stuff. It's seeing those people in those moments because you just guys just get to be real with each other for like, you know, a couple hours.
Yeah, you're friends with her as well, but we always go to the same bar. No, it's not really. We don't go there for the bar, but we go there for like
see
the
people.
actual food. No. We just go there for the actual food.
we bring the people there.
Yeah.
Oh, that
Uh,
place that's kind of expensive. That's right beside the where like Xbox is all
Yard
set
House.
up.
Yard
Yeah,
House.
it's
Yeah, Yard House.
Holly.
Yard House. Oh, Yard House is that spot.
Holly Wolf
Yeah.
took
Yeah,
us
we-
there one night,
Yes.
and then every time that like we would go out to eat, we had a big get together with like all of the Chamber of Sages people. For those who don't know, it's like
Oh, nice.
Zeltic and Commonwealth Realm and Dr. Wiley and a bunch of other people. And we had to meet up with some of our friends and people that were fans of the channel, and they like we just had a big get together there. So, but I really like it because it has the best chicken sandwich that I've ever had. Sadly, Daniel won't be able to experience it because he's
They actually
vegetarian.
have good vegetarian food there. They have very good vegetarian.
They have
why
a
we
lot
go
of good
there.
food there.
But I'm
really
very
and great drinks too.
if Holly
They
is
have my
watching
favorite
this,
beer, too.
thank you
Just
to
putting that out there.
yeah. Thank you to Holly for introducing us to that place
Yes.
because I remember the first time after I ate there, on the way home, I was at the airport and I ordered a chicken sandwich because I was craving the chicken sandwich from that restaurant. So
You're
big
like,
big
this
thank
is
you
not the
to
same.
yeah,
It's
yeah.
not the same.
It was way more expensive and not nearly as good.
Yes. So we got a super chat from Jusek.
Yeah, he just gives a thumb up.
He goes.
Thumbs up.
Yeah,
Man.
maybe he likes chicken sandwiches too.
Maybe.
That's what I'm talking about.
Tubes, do you have a question that you would like to?
Yeah,
Mr.
kinda.
JJ.
So I know when at E3, two people that really stuck out to me and really, it was like, wow, like they're so dedicated, so passionate. You and N64 Josh. I don't know how, but you two were the busiest people that I saw at E3. You were interviews, meeting with people, interviews, and it was like one after the
Networking.
other.
And
like,
more, by the way, that you didn't see. I mean,
Yeah,
I'll tell you,
like,
like, there's
so
more
busy
that I
that
was
you,
doing
like-
on top of that.
Like N64 Josh just barely got his little Link figurine from playing Link's Awakening. Just barely. Like he
didn't
was just
get one.
asking, like,
I
can you just
wanted
give me
one.
one?
Yeah, Josh was very nice. Kayla, you introduced all of us to him,
I did.
and then
Yeah. Yeah, he's a
sad.
good person. I was actually having a really hard time one day. I can't remember what it was, and he reached out to me and he went, "Hey, I see that you're in the community. I see you're having a hard time. I wrote this book. Let me give it to you." And I was like, "No, no, 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 no. You worked on that. No free thing." So I immediately went and I read it. Really good. Definitely recommend. Anyways, back to what I was talking about. So being so involved in the gaming community and working so hard in the gaming community, like I took a bit of a step back because like I work with Nintendo and I try to stream when I can, but I took a step back because I found the more I did it, the more I was like, I can't. Like I'm exhausted with it. How do you keep it up? How do you keep going back to it and go, I'm passionate about video games when you're just so go all the time?
It's a combination of different things, and the other thing on top of that, because that's a very real emotion that everybody has to deal with, and if anybody tells you otherwise, they're lying to you. You just don't know any. On top of dealing with that, but also dealing with the payoff of dealing with all of it, which is not always the best, and sometimes there's nothing that comes with it. Really, I love it because again, I love the medium. I love gaming as an art form. For various different reasons. Obviously, gaming as an entertainment art form for me and for all of you guys and everybody else listening to this as well. I think that I just love the conversation about it. I love the discussions that I have with it with different people about it. Whether it's again, the games that I'm passionate about, games I don't know about, games that I'm rediscovering again, for another time, or anything associated with it. That's what really keeps me in the game about it all. Or at least constantly doing stuff. And also, I've always feel like whether I go to a place like E3 or I go to another event or I'm around people, I always feel like I have something to prove because there's always going to be people that don't know who I am. There's a lot of people that don't know who I am, even though I've done a lot of different stuff that I want people to get something out of. But I always feel like I got to prove something that is like, okay, you got to be 145% on top of what you're doing, plus then some, in order to make sure that like people actually see or even get a chance to care about what you do. One of the biggest challenges that I've had over the last couple of years for a couple different places that I've done work for is I've gone and done a lot of work seen or it just won't be talked about. Like I'm one of those people, unfortunately, again, I'm one of these guys that screams from the rooftops about all the stuff that he does on social media. Like I'm constantly putting my stuff on Twitter, constantly putting my stuff on LinkedIn, on Facebook, on Instagram, etc. And even though I know that I could get a little bit of, even for me, from other people, it's like everybody experiences that. But like that's one of the things that's part of the game. That's one of the things that's being part of this. Because if you don't put it out there, if you don't put yourself out there, if you don't constantly try to represent what you're all about or represent what you're actually doing out here, nobody's going to care and nobody's going to see it. So the thing that kind of really keeps me in all of this, besides all that, is really when you have those moments, those little victories where something's off. Like perfect example. This happened to me this last weekend when I went to Lumi. There was a guy that I met that was dressed in a Castlevania Trevor Belmont cosplay because of, for the Netflix series. Mm-hmm. He actually, again, when I went up to him, I just went up to him to say like, hey, you have a dope costume that's like really cool. And I get a picture and everything. Thought that was really dope. And he recognized me from the video that I did about Luke prior year because he was looking at videos on what the con was all about. And it was my video that helped decide for him to come to this year. And I was like, wow, that's something that hardly anybody else will ever know about, hardly anybody else will ever care. It mattered to me. That made a difference for someone, that actually helped out somebody in a way that not only was positive for them, but it was like somehow it made its way back to me. There's other moments too where I'll talk to different people. Like, again, here's another one I could think of. I went to the E2E conference down here in Miami, it was Broward, I'm sorry. It was down in Broward during the Ultimate Gamer event. And the E2E conference is an esports conference where people were going to talk about esports, but the business side of things, and my perspective is that I was coming at it from the media side as someone that's exposed to gaming and observing gaming through a different lens that these business people don't know. And one of the things that happened there was that there was a woman there that doesn't know much about esports, but has her son or her child that was getting into esports and wanted to have it as a career to compete in like Fortnite and other games in order to make money out of it. And she's like, okay, how can I actually support my kid in actually making this happen and understanding and being supportive of him? And she was like, I always feel like I'm always holding him back or I'm doing something wrong because I just don't get it. I'm trying to regulate him to actually make sure he does his real life stuff without compromising the things that he wants to be a part of. And one of the things that I told her and that she really appreciated was that never apologize for being a parent, because the fact that you're here talking about this stuff with us and asking about it is more than enough support that your kid needs on top of you doing what you do like that. And later on, she came and told me, had a real conversation about it. It's like, listen, I really need to hear that because to every other person that I've talked to just says like, oh, it's going through a phase. He's, doing kid things. He's just playing games to make sure, he's got to do real life stuff. It's like, no, you're the first person that said like, listen, I'm being a good parent out here and I'm actually caring about this stuff. And it was that type of emotion that really stuck with me. So it's little victories like that, even though they're not big victories as of yet, because the big victory to me would be when I get to do this as a career where I make enough money to sustain myself and to do much more bigger and grander things. That's the big victory to me. But these little victories are like the little breadcrumbs that'll hopefully lead up to something like that. So it kind of keeps me, upbeat about it. It keeps me motivated about it, and all the other stuff along with it comes as well. The little feedback on social media, the comments on YouTube, and all these other places help out. But it's really those little things for me personally that really, sticks out to me. Hope that answers. I know it's a lot.
Yeah,
that was a really good answer.
It's heartwarming as hell.
I get that. I mean, I had my first situation actually a couple weeks ago. I'm in a Discord with, I call them 𝐿 because I don't know how to pronounce their name. And so I'm in their Discord just because they invited me. It's like a roleplay Discord. And I just kind of like hopped in kind of casually. And every now and then I'll kind of pop in. I'll chat with them. That's like, I don't really chat that often, but I pop in occasionally. And they were like, wow, like it's so nice to hear from someone that I consider like a celebrity in my mind to be like, hey, like I know what you're going through. I understand what you're hearing. And I was like, excuse me? I stream like once every 6 months. And they were like, yeah, but you're the person that like inspired me. You're the only person I bought bits for to donate. And I was like,
and you know something? This funny thing about that, a lot of people misunderstand and misuse that. A lot of people, a lot of content creators, the spectacle and the celebrity, quote unquote, of it. The reputation, clout is what a lot of people consider it. Yeah. And one of the things I've always tried to make an effort for me, and I see it in a couple other people as well, and I always hope for others to do it in some fashion too, was that to have a lot of reverence for that, to never abuse that, and to never take advantage of that in a bad way that will be at the expense of other people. And I see that sometimes way too often. And I think that if you get more content creators or more media people and more celebrities, personalities, quote unquote, out there that thought a little bit more like that, as opposed to what we see every once in a while, the community or the greater gaming community and even YouTube and other entertainment communities would be a lot more better off, because there'll be people out there doing stuff that's going to help people along their way, as opposed to taking advantage and just trying to get theirs.
Preach. Yeah. No, it's true. So true. And I think, I don't know, people have heard me say it before, but like if you're in a position where you're a creator and you can, you're in a position to be able to do that sort of thing, you owe everything to your fans. You owe everything to those people that support you, right? So I never understood the attitude where people would get snooty about it, or like,
you want to know what it is? I'll tell you exactly what it is. And the problem is that not only do people want to get theirs, and when I say get theirs, I mean get ahead, whether it's money, Patreon donations, games, clout, reputation, access, For us in the games media, for a lot of websites that are smaller and they're not part of the bigger outlets, they like access because it allows them to do all this other stuff. That's what they get caught up on, as opposed to for the love of the craft, as well as also the love of building a community. I think the better content creators and the ones that you see, like the Greg Millers, like the Colin Moriartys, like the Andre Renees, and like, the Alana Pierces, and the list goes on. Those are people that care about not only their work and the passion of being a part of it all and the process of it, but also building the communities and interacting with those people that, again, appreciate what they do. Again, they don't abuse that relationship. They don't abuse that privilege, really is what it is, for being a part of this type of stuff. Because without them and without all that, we'd all be working really bad day jobs that was like not good, not fun, and not, appealing to us in our everyday lives. So those are the people that I feel like I give a lot of respect for, and I give a lot of, nods to, because they're doing it right. And that's the examples that a lot of other people out here that I see in various different facets of the community should actually take example from.
Yeah, with Greg and the rest of them, but mainly Greg, because I feel like he was taking maybe one of the biggest risks at the time. But there was a lot of interviews and podcasts that he was doing whenever he had first left IGN, and they started kind of funny with the Game Over Greg show. And at first they were doing both of them, but because he was working at IGN and he had his own thing, they were only doing pop culture and movies and comics and stuff like that. They wouldn't talk about video games. And that was because IGN, from their words, IGN was basically like, well, if you're going to make a video about video games, or you're going to have a podcast about video games, why don't you do that for us? Which they already were doing that for them. They had, they did Game Scoop off and on, and then they also had the podcast Beyond, which was their PlayStation podcast, and they were the editors for the PlayStation brand at IGN. But they eventually said, well, let's just take that risk and see if we can do our own thing on YouTube. That way we can talk about video games on YouTube, because that's what all of our commenters and fans and everyone on YouTube keep asking us, is why don't we talk about video games? And for the longest time they wouldn't say, because they didn't want people to get mad at IGN. So then they finally took that leap, and Greg said, I don't know, like, I know he said it in like a GameSpot interview and a bunch of others, that he was getting paid around like $100,000 a year at the time, which was because he was like one of the lead managers at IGN.
Because he was on Up at Noon. That's because he was the host, he was a producer. So I think he was a content producer for Up at Noon, on top of what he's doing else over there.
Yeah, so he left that pay plus, like, whatever kind of insurance and other beneficial stuff that they have at IGN, and basically like all of that's almost guaranteed every week, every month, or every year. Plus, he was just getting more and more popular with the rise of like gaming podcasts and stuff like that, and Podcast Beyond. Like, a lot of people knew what it was, but it was just getting more and more popular. But he left that guaranteed lifestyle that he had and took a risk and started his own thing. And that could have plummeted to where, like, who would in their right mind would leave $100,000 a year plus good health insurance in America, because I know some of you guys are in Canada, so but good health insurance in America and everything. And like, it wasn't just him, but like, he convinced his best friend who he was living with and two of their friends to do it, and like, they're living in San Francisco as well, which is one of the most expensive cities.
You want to know why that was, though? Why that was a good risk is because they banked on a community that they fostered. A lot of content creators, a lot of other media nowadays are complaining about certain stuff happening with, like, YouTube or whatever else, but it really goes back to the communities that they fostered. And they fostered and grew a good community that not only promoted positivity, but also got it to a point where the community could almost like automate it, like, self-sustain itself through positivity, and actually set that same example that they were going for. And that's why they were able to do all that stuff and take such a big risk and have it pay off.
Yeah. Really quick, there was a Mo Chocolate, for those who don't know, in the chat. Official Mo Chocolate is his username. Yeah. You do? That's awesome.
Yes.
Uh,
I know
Dude.
yeah, he's a very great guy. He sung a lovely song to end the interview that I had with him a couple of weeks ago. So
Oh yeah.
some love to Mo for his $4 donation. I don't know if he meant to send. He sent $2 twice. I don't know if he meant to do that. Let us know if you meant to do that or not.
He's just double the hype.
Yeah.
Because he said Breath of the Wild 2. I guess he was so hyped.
He's extra chocolatey.
Yeah.
Double chocolate.
Yeah, I had a wonderful conversation with him because he's another person who, because of YouTube, I went from just like being a fan of because I seen him on PlayStation's The Gamer, and then like whenever I started talking to him, it was crazy to find out because he's like, "You're a fan of me, and like I'm a fan of what you do, so this is awesome." Because like we were like fans of each other, and then we became friends, and then we honestly had that interview planned for at least a year or two before it actually happened because scheduling is just so bad. But then it finally happened, so I was really happy to do that. Do we have Daniel?
Yeah.
I feel like you were about to say anything. I don't know what else to say before we move
Was
on.
it called? You said the gamer, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was the tester.
Yeah, the tester. Did I say the gamer?
Yeah. You said the gamer.
I
Yeah,
was
you
like,
meant the
no,
tester.
his PlayStation's the tester. Season
That's
2
the
he
one.
was on.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
I
then
was just confused for a second. I was
who
like,
was
is there
it?
another thing I don't know about?
He was on who was it? There's the one guy from Game Grumps. Ego Raptor was on
Ego
season
Raptor, yeah.
3 of it. And then we talked about a weird, somewhat funny story about how Ego Raptor almost got kicked off because he was trying to act like his character or something like that, where his name Ego, he was trying to act like he had a huge ego, and I was like, well, you're not gonna kick me off because I bring in the views and stuff, and they were like, no.
He was like, "Oh, word? Okay."
But Dennis in the chat gives
Denny?
another 20. Is that from Czech?
Check Kronos.
I don't know what that converts to in US.
I think
Good question.
it comes out to like about like maybe $2 each time, because I remember getting like we were all like, stop donating so much, and then he's like, no, it's like $2. So
It is, yeah, about that. But
yeah. I also want to say thank you to N64 Josh, who Chubes mentioned earlier, because he was it didn't go as planned, but he was very, very busy during E3, and he volunteered to come and record the IGN interview that I had with
Nice.
Per Schneider, the
yeah.
co-owner, co-creator, or something like that.
Co-founder.
of IGN.
Co-founder of IGN.
Yeah, and he's also on the. I feel kind of embarrassed because I think during the interview I said that I loved GameScoop, but there was like someone else there that was on a GameScoop. He does the
David
Nintendo.
Hatfield.
Yeah. But he does the Nintendo voice chat podcast, and then
Bear's been
but
on there too, though.
sometimes he does go on the GameScoop podcast. But we got to talk about some Ura, not necessarily Ura Zelda, but Zelda 64 stuff, because on the channel we're always asked about like beta Ocarina of Time stuff, and he actually got to play beta Ocarina of Time. So because he
early demos.
yeah, he got to play at an event where Miyamoto and other people at Nintendo were there, like walking around the room while they were playing the beta version of Ocarina of Time, and then they sent them around like San Francisco or LA or wherever it was. There was like a small portion of the city where they had what's it called, like a quest of their own. What's it called? Where like you're on a scavenger hunt.
Game?
Yeah, kind of like that, but it was more of a scavenger hunt that they had to do, like you're on a quest to get items and stuff around the city and stuff. But anyways, does anyone have any final things to talk about. Do you have anything, JJ,
Bananas.
that you want to talk about before you?
One of the things I was going to mention before to Chew, because I said it before, was that at E3, you know, some of the things you didn't get to see, even though I was like ridiculously busy. I mean, the times you just saw me when I was running around, that was me going from like appointment to appointment and then just saying like, hey to you guys, because I had like that half an hour to an hour like interval between places. And by the way, that's to go from the West Hall to the South Hall back like a ping pong ball between the two halls.
For people that don't know,
that
it's
is
insanely
everybody at
long
E3.
ways.
Because it is a lot of walking. And then the crazy thing about this year when I saw you guys was that I had something to do almost every hour. I had to be someplace to go see games. And granted, there were some big games I had to go see. I mean, if I have to go run across the convention center to go play Final Fantasy VII Remake, I'm running across the convention center to go play Final Fantasy VII Remake.
Oh, yeah.
You know, things like that were happening frequently. And that's how E3 always is. And I could understand, you know, with the N64 dude, where he, again, running around like crazy and then taking that moment to go do something, because E3 is hectic for everybody. Even if you're not doing a lot of stuff, it is absolutely insane and crazy, and it's always that. And the more people that are there, the more hectic that it gets when you have to get to this for appointments. So it was still fun, though. It's still part of the whole craziness that's still fun.
Yeah, I so appreciate the grind that all these content creators do. Like, you see all the time, like N64 Josh, he's up at 3 a.m. to go to the gym and start his day, work his day job, spend time with his family, and still create content. And I'm like, dang, I can barely work an 8-hour day at work without having to go take a 5-hour nap.
That's when you need the big cup of coffee.
I don't know how he does it.
So, JJ.
That's why every time I'm streaming, you see me there just like, drinking that coffee.
It's a good cup of coffee.
That's a good cup of coffee.
JessX in the chat says that you are a samurai because of all of your swords on your wall. Can you confirm or deny
Those are my
this?
keyblades. My keyblades, my gun blade from Final Fantasy VIII, and then I don't know if you can see it over here. There's a ice sword from Mortal Kombat, Sub-Zero's ice sword.
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
That's right there. That it lights up, which is pretty cool.
So are you confirming or denying that you are a samurai?
The no comment sounds like it's yes.
I am samurai. I am Klingon. I am what is it? Gerudo. Since we're a Zelda, Zelda podcast over here, you know, or Hylian, I should say, technically.
I had a very important question on Instagram earlier: Zora or Goron? Where would you?
Which one?
Zora or Goron?
I would take a Zora because they probably look nicer and swim because it's really cool. Gorons, you know, they're like the Gorons are like the big linebacker defenseman, but like you don't want to be a Goron because you don't want to take the hits. You want them to take the hits for you. So I'd rather be a Zora. And plus, also we got sushi as Zoras. Okay, we got fish. I mean, who doesn't want sushi? You know what I'm saying?
Me, I pick Goron.
You pick Goron?
I pick Goron. They're lovable. They're just big, lovable, big guys, big, lovable dudes. They're just everyone's your bro. Life's great. Gorons love life. That's all I'm saying. Like you meet a Goron and they all love life. So they got something good going on there.
The beginning of Twilight Princess is like, it's questionable.
Yeah, but then like you know they sort their stuff out.
That's the only game where they literally punch you.
Yeah, they're going for blood. They want you dead. That's a
I got punched to death by a Goron. They do it. They will punch you to death. Literally.
But it's because you don't love life enough. They love life.
That's the last thing you want. You don't want to get dunked on by a Goron.
No.
I think that the better question, Jesse, was how does a Goron shave?
Oh yeah, that was the one other day on Twitter.
And Jenny said something about like, what part.
What part of?
Oh yeah, because like a lot of people
that's literal manscaping.
I was gonna say the back because that's lumpy.
They just roll.
How do you shave in
They
that?
get like a really like you know when you get like a knife, like a knife sharpening
grinder
or something. Yeah, exactly. So. They just they curl up and roll on that.
And you know what the shaving cream is? Cement, liquid cement.
So there was,
and then they can eat it too.
There was an answer to that I kind of questioned because a couple of people answered the same way. Okay, so here it is. Like some people said, with a big knife with tiny pickaxes, Norelco. But then some people, like there were multiple people commented, pumice.
Pumice.
I don't understand the pumice thing.
Pumice is a type of rock.
That sounds
Like a
really
volcanic
suspect.
rock.
I'm not gonna lie.
It's like a it's like a.
I was thinking of hummus.
Hummus, by the way.
Yeah, I was thinking of
I was thinking of
hummus.
hummus too. That's food. That's good.
It's like a volcanic rock.
Lather that on, the hair comes off with it.
So like
It's Nair,
there,
you didn't even know.
yeah, everyone had different answers for it, but then there was a few people that was like pumice, and I'm like, what? Why is that? Why are so many people saying pumice? Like,
I still like dynamite for Goron.
is this
Jam.
actually in the game and I just don't know
Dynamite
about it?
Just put it there. Hope for the best.
The what is it? The giant kegs, the big kegs
Yeah,
from
the
Majora's
powder
Mask. Yeah, the powder kegs. That's it. All right. So we've been going on for about an hour and 10 minutes. We haven't even gotten to our first news story. I was expecting that to go like 20, 30 minutes maybe.
We got too much to say.
My
Yeah,
bad.
a lot of a lot of good
You're
stuff
good.
there. Yeah, we'll be able to like break that up into like a two-parter, kind of like what we did with the interview with Mo. So Daniel, do you want to take the news story there?
Sure. Well, this is an article. Comes
Wait,
from
first
Eurogames.
it says like
Oh.
it'll have the title and then it'll like say "and this." The "and this." The way that the different websites worded it, I thought it was two separate news stories, but it was about the same thing. So instead of having them as like two separate news stories, I just blocked them as whatever the title was and this, because they're talking about the same thing. But you can just skip the "and this" thing and just do the Eurogamer thing. I think it's from Eurogamer, at least.
I feel like you just made me like 20 times. I just have a news article.
He's talking about.
Yeah, just do the news article.
Ah, you broke my brain.
I'm sorry.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
It's all good. So this is this is an article that comes from Eurogamer.net. That's a website. Report: Nintendo wants to bring canceled 3DS games to Switch. Plans could include a canceled 3DS Fire Emblem game, which really it just makes sense.
Wait,
guys.
Daniel,
It
I'm
just
stopping you.
makes sense.
I'm
Okay.
stopping you
Yes,
because
I'm been
I
stopped.
said something about 2 minutes ago on the podcast.
What?
And I just now got tagged. Wait, hold on.
What?
I'll
He's
cover
got
the
tagged.
person. I'll cover the person's name.
Who? What?
But I was tagged on
That's just-
Facebook
Uh-oh.
because what is it?
Don't punch yourself because you don't love life. And
Yeah, the Goron quote.
That's funny.
I didn't want to put the person's name up for people to like search.
Gorons
them or
will
whatever.
punch you for not loving life enough. Jesse 2019.
Yeah.
yeah,
It was
punch you
very-
right to death.
Start
So
living
anyways,
your life. I keep
finish
eating my
finish what you were saying. Sorry about that, Daniel.
Yes,
I just
that's
wanted
okay.
to. It was just
So the article
hilarious.
reads: This is an article by Vicky Blake of Eurogamer.net. Nintendo is rumored to be considering bringing a range of canceled 3DS games to Nintendo Switch, including, but not limited to, a previously canceled Fire Emblem game. In an interview with Kinda Funny, former Game Informer editor Imran Khan spoke at length about what he'd learned about Nintendo's plan, including details about the recent shuttering of Mario and Luigi Bowser's Inside Story plus Bowser Jr.'s Journey developer. What a game title, man. That's
a
many
long
words.
title.
That's too many words. The developer of that game, Alpha Dream, after it just sold 11,000 copies in its debut month. As a result of the RPG's lukewarm sales, Nintendo reportedly scaled back other 3DS plans, including several games that were already mid-development, such as Style Savvy and a reportedly unannounced Fire Emblem. I know, this is a quote here, I know there was another Fire Emblem remake in the works for 3DS, and that was one of the things that they shuttered, Khan said. So maybe that's one of the things that they'll bring forward in the future. On its own, of course, this rumor is precisely that, a rumor and nothing more. The salt shakers, guys. However, just a few days ago, Wall Street reporter Takashi
Mochizuki.
Mochizuki, yeah.
Yes, Mochizuki made a similar claim, telling Twitter Nintendo said company would make more 3DS franchises available on Switch to convey appeal of light. There's certain there's certainly every incentive for Nintendo to capitalize on the Switch. Of course, the Switch Lite was off to a good start, selling 1.95 million units worldwide in its first 11 days. That's pretty good. The Legend of Zelda Link's Awakening sold 3.13 million copies during the same short time frame, whilst Fire Emblem 3 Houses sold an impressive 2.29 million since its launch at the end of July. Super Mario Maker has reportedly shifted 3.93 million since the end of June. That's the end of the article here. But really, it makes sense if they canceled a game on the one. It's not really even like the first time they've transitioned development from one console to another either. Like there's games that have started development on one thing, and then just as the next console comes out, they shift that development forward. And the 3DS, as much as it pains many people to hear it, is on its last legs, guys. The 3DS is really... What was the last big 3DS release that came out? Metroid, maybe? That was what?
Metroid Samus
Luigi's
Returns,
Mansion remake.
Yeah,
but that was
Luigi's
that and
Mansion.
Metroid Samus Returns. I think it was.
Yeah.
Metroid.
Both of those were remakes,
Actually, yeah,
right? So
it got its own 3DS as well.
Yeah, true. Which I wanted.
There's a funny story. Joey Ferris, for those who don't know. I remember looking on Instagram or Twitter or Facebook or something, and he posted a picture. He's like, "Oh, I didn't even know this was coming," and it was just like a big package from Nintendo. And I was like, "Oh my god, he got that in the mail!" So then I just ran out to my mailbox to look to see if I got it, because we were both being sponsored by Nintendo at the time. I didn't get it. So I was super sad. I was like, maybe
Get that walk of shame back inside.
yeah, I was like, maybe if I wasn't so focused on Zelda and like casually talked about Metroid sometimes, maybe it would have happened. But
Thank God there wasn't a Goron near you that day.
Yeah, he would
really,
have punched you to death.
I'm just saying.
exactly. So that did you get all that article?
Yeah,
Daniel?
but,
Okay.
but yeah, no, the 3DS, it had, just as Aaron, or gosh, just as folks are saying in the chat here, and George saying, like, the 3DS had a long life. It had a good run. It's time to put it to rest, and it only makes sense for canceled game to just move over to the Switch, because the Switch is, some people might say the Switch is doing pretty okay on the market right now. You might say it's doing all right.
Yeah. There is one thing with the 3DS and the Switch that I want to mention that a lot of people... Do you remember the infamous 3DS Zelda rumor of... we joked about it. People that listen to the podcast...
The bridge?
Yeah, the bridge. People on the podcast, or people that are familiar with the podcast, know that we joked around with the rumor of the Link's Awakening remake, or... A Link Between Worlds inspired Link's Awakening remake that people were making, which Daniel says, just a bridge, because it was, Link's Awakening takes place on an island, and then A Link Between Worlds was the type of remake that it was supposed to be, so people were calling it like A Link Between Islands and stuff, and I'm like, well, that's a bridge. If it's a link between islands, that's just a bridge. So that's the joke that we made, but it kind of goes along with this, because the rumor for a long time was that it was a remake for the 3DS, and then a lot of people think that they just brought it over to the Nintendo Switch from the 3DS, which kind of would have been impossible based. Yeah, it's good that it's for the Switch, but it would kind of be impossible for it to have started out on the 3DS unless they completely switched engines sometime in development, because it's on Unreal Engine 4. And everyone's been begging for, like, they see all of these fan remakes on YouTube where it's like, oh, Zelda Ocarina of Time in Unreal Engine 4. And people get super excited about it, and it's like, well, we now have an official Zelda game in Unreal Engine 4. Like, video game engines don't work the way people think they work. That, like, just because it's in Unreal Engine 4 doesn't mean that it's going to look like the YouTube videos, because now, like, the engine can make it look any way they want it to look. It's just what they use to develop the game. But now that we have the official Unreal Engine 4 Zelda game, it looks like Link's Awakening. So it's a bit ironic, and I love it. Yeah.
It's such a Nintendo move to do that.
But that
Like, oh, you want an Unreal Engine game? Okay, but we're gonna make like with a weird Rankin Bass a little stop motion.
yeah, and the
Yeah.
first official Nintendo game that had Unreal Engine 4, I think, was Yoshi's. What was the Yoshi game?
Whirly World.
Yeah. Wait, was it Woolly World?
Or Crafted World?
Crafted World.
Crafted World.
That was it.
Yeah.
One of them.
Well, Woolly World might have been as well, but
Could've-
I know on. No wait. Yeah, it was Yoshi. Yoshi was Unreal Engine 4, I think.
Yeah,
Because
again,
I thought I was getting it mixed up with Kirby, but Kirby was made in the same engine as Smash Bros.
No surprise.
Yeah,
It's Sakurai.
yeah. That's why he was the only one to escape. But anyways, going back, the whole point of that weird tangent thing was with the Zelda game being like a game that they thought, or that a lot of people thought, started out on 3DS and then made its way to Switch. What are some games that you guys would like to see from the 3DS that are on 3DS right now make its way to Switch? Obviously, we have some games already, like obviously Mario Maker, but that came out to be a sequel because there is the 3DS port of Mario Maker from the Wii U to the 3DS, and then it came to Switch eventually. They did the same thing with the Yoshi game as well, because they had Yoshi and Poochie, was his name? Was that his name?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Poochie.
Poochie.
Yeah, and then they had the same
my
style of
Poochie
Yoshi game
amiibo.
come to the Switch, and then they had what was it? There was another one, I forgot. It was Mario Maker, Yoshi, Smash Bros. What are other 3DS games that came to Switch?
They got ported over, like confirmed ported over. I'm trying to think, because other than those, I'm even
those
looking at my
only
3DS
count,
collection.
though, because like
A lot of
they're, like,
people
sequels,
thought,
right?
and I was one of them, that the Luigi's Mansion on 3DS was
Dark
like,
Moon.
yeah, was going to be ported over to actually Wii U at the time, but that never happened. But anyways, what are starting with you, JJ, since you are the guest? What are some 3DS games that you would
There's
have
quite a
liked to
few.
see?
I
come
mean,
to Switch?
some we've even said before. There's quite a few, but I would love, I would hope at some point maybe Nintendo would be open to the idea of talking to third parties about some of the games that were canceled that were supposed to be on 3DS and then bringing them over to Switch. The biggest
Can
one
you think
for me,
of any? Oh,
yeah,
you're already
Mega
going
Man
to answer
Legends
that.
3.
Never mind. No,
Mega
shut
Man
up.
Legends 3. That's the biggest one. I think that's third party because I felt that was a big deal. Remember, that had a demo that was supposed to get released, and they never did it because of the whole thing with Kenji Inafune and Capcom back then. That was supposed to be a thing, and I would love for that to be a thing on Switch because I feel like I'd be right at home with that, and especially as an exclusive, that would be amazing for a lot of people. But if we're just talking Nintendo first parties like that, to make the jump from 3DS to Switch, I would say Luigi's Mansion, Dark Moon. I would say Kid Icarus Uprising. I would say, somehow maybe get a Fire Emblem collection, like Fire Emblem Awakening, Fire Emblem Fates, stuff like that on the Nintendo Switch, because those games don't seem like they're that big. And I feel like they could work on Switch, in some form or fashion. I mean, even looking at my 3DS collection now, like glancing at it, I would love to see it again. Going back to third parties, I would love to see the Therephim Final Fantasy games get ported over, or at least a version of Thephim Final Fantasy, like a sequel, get made for that with new music and stuff, because that's a different type of experience. And I think you should be able to play that game even on the Switch handheld mode, because again, with the touchscreen and stuff. But there's a lot of different ones. Again, you could even point to other games even now, like Chibi Robo seemed like a game on 3DS that was just kind of left there to die, and like they had him as like a mascot at one point, and he even showed up in a trophy in Smash Brothers. So I would love to see something like that. Yeah, he had an amiibo. Like they made a big
of
deal.
all things.
I would love to see something like that. Some of those franchises are just make the jump.
Yeah, Marsupial.
There's other games I want to see get ported over to Switch that are not on 3DS though.
Marsupial in the chat says Kid Icarus Uprising. I have a friend who worked on that game, so that would be really cool to see it come over. I think
that would make sense.
I'm not sure, but I for some reason I feel like Sean, when he was on the podcast, the voice actor for Rivali and the Great Deku Tree, I think when he was on the podcast, he mentioned something about that game. Maybe does he do voices in that game? I don't know.
I don't think so.
You have to look it up.
I don't
He
know.
was talking a lot about like JRPGs that he was voicing in at the time, but that's all
He
I
did
really remember.
Octopath and
Yeah.
The reason why that would be so good is because again, the control scheme on the 3DS with Kid Icarus Uprising, some people liked it, some people didn't, but that seems like that would be a great twin stick, like, you know, control game, like a third person or first person shooter, kind of like Splatoon on
Yeah,
Switch.
that was one of the
Right.
first games
Their
that they
gyros.
promoted with the second attachable.
Yeah, exactly.
They called it like the boat thing because it
The
made
Pro,
it.
the Circle Pad Pro.
Yeah,
Because I had the big one for my XL at the time.
yeah. But yeah, those are a bunch of good games. Daniel, I imagine there's a game, a very specific game that you would like to see from the 3DS to the Switch.
I'm wondering what you're thinking of that you're thinking that I'm thinking of, and if I'm thinking of the same thing that you're thinking that I'm thinking of.
Nintendogs.
But
No,
it's not Nintendo.
Nintendo.
this could go one of two ways,
Like somebody's thinking about that.
right?
At some point.
This could go one of two ways, Daniel. Let us know in the chat which game. You can go after Kayla, Daniel. Let us know in the chat which game is it. Let us know in the chat which game am I
Let us know
thinking,
which game.
Daniel. Which 3DS
Which game is Jesse
Exclusive-
thinking that I'm thinking of?
exclusive
And
to the
bonus
3DS?
Bonus points if you can guess which game I'm thinking that Jesse's thinking I'm thinking of.
Exclusive to
Kayla.
3DS?
Okay, is it my
Kayla.
turn?
Yeah.
Kayla, take us away.
Alright. So, first off, I know we have an Animal Crossing coming, but I would love if they put New Leaf on there because New
Of
Leaf was
course.
so well done and so good, and I
But
wish I
don't you
could
got
play
enough
it in
of
more
Tom
places.
Nook? Don't you got enough of Tom Nook though? I'm just saying, like he's gonna take all your bills already.
Man's after my heart. Yeah, so that Legend of Starfy, such a good game. Loved that game. When it first came out, I was really offended, and I was like, why would you ever buy me a game that's a Kirby ripoff? Loved it. I have played so many hours of Starfy. And ideally, like, probably all of the Zelda games, because the reason why I didn't play all of the ones that were on DS is because they were on DS. I'm not going to go out there and buy a game on my DS. No offense, DS, but I think I've only ever bought like maybe 3 games for my DS. 4 games, yeah. Animal Crossing, Luigi's Mansion, Dark Moon, which I couldn't play because one of my bumpers was broken. What's that? Oh, and of course, Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask.
Oh yeah.
So those
That
are,
should be a
like, the
collection,
only-
honestly.
Yeah, right? Like, those are the only games that I bought. So for me, like, my big probably, like, every Zelda game ever just needs to come to the Switch. That's it. That's all I got. And I don't think I really cared about a lot of other things on DS that I'd want to see on Switch, so.
Daniel,
Hmm.
votes are in from the chat.
And
What
I don't know why.
was
They're
your
all
game?
saying
Was your game
Pikmin,
Hey
and I'm
Pikmin?
offended. I'm
Yeah,
offended.
they think that you wanted Hey Pikmin. Hey
I'm
Pikmin was the
upset.
worst. I can't
I'm
believe that
very
game
upset.
I'm all
came
for
out.
Pikmin, but come on, hey Pikmin.
No,
That's
that's the joke because we've talked about how a long time ago Miyamoto had the interview where he said it was like whenever they first announced the Nintendo NX as it was known. There was an interview. It was either the same interview or around the same time that he talked about how Pikmin 4 was like it was Pikmin 4 and Super Mario Galaxy 3 were either already done or like months away from being done or something like that and would be coming out soon. And obviously like now we have Odyssey and no news about Pikmin 4, but we do have Hey Pikmin. So it's like was he talking about the 4th Pikmin game being Hey Pikmin? So we the chat and I like to
Just gonna
tease
say it was the
Daniel
Pikmin
about
shorts.
Hey Pikmin.
I'm just gonna say Pikmin 4 was just the Pikmin shorts, and those were great. and Hey Pikmin never. It never happened.
Yeah. So which 3DS games? What are your second and third 3DS games since we know your first from the chat? Dennis says bananas. Banana.
Yeah. Just he's repping the bananas. What? Anyways, so first of all, a Zelda collector's pack would be amazing. And since there is, in fact, 3
Who would do it though?
Zelda 3DS
Who would
games, you
Nintendo
gotta
trust to do a
Grezzo.
3DS?
Just put Grezzo on it.
You think they would?
Yeah, they they made them in the first place.
Yeah, but I think Ocarina of Time especially would be so important to Nintendo that
They already let Grezzo do it.
Yeah, but like an official HD remake.
Sure, they let him do the Link's Awakening.
Yeah, but that's
Sure.
Link's Awakening. You can't make it look worse than it originally did.
Wow, all they got to do is take a collection of. You just take the 3DS version, then the Switch, and just take Ocarina of Time, Majora's Mask, and then throw a Link Between Worlds for good measure.
Yeah, but then you're gonna have like the millions of fans being like, "This doesn't look as good as it does on YouTube."
Not good with me, man. Kayla said Animal Crossing, and no one says a word.
Yep, it's because who doesn't want Animal Crossing? Nintendo would do Animal Crossing right.
They're already giving us a new Animal Crossing. We don't.
I'm telling you, you guys are gonna get broke by Tom Nook by the time
Oh.
he's coming for those bells.
You know what? We have waited like 7 years. They could have just put that game on it to start, and we probably would have never asked for another Animal Crossing game after that.
Yeah.
Oh man.
All right. No, Daniel's game is Metroid.
It's Metroid. Of course, it's Metroid.
Thought it was
Federation
Hitman,
Force.
but okay.
Of course, it's Metroid.
Federation Force.
Oh my god.
No, could it be
Where do you
Federation
see?
Force? Yeah, they're putting F in the chat, so Federation Force.
Oh,
That's
I
what
remember when I had
F
to
is.
review that game. Oh man, it was so terrible.
My theory on Federation Force was because they've explained this for other games before, like Star Fox Adventures started out as like Dinosaur Planet or something, and they were like,
Right.
we don't think
So this
that'll
just
do
started out
too
as
well.
Blast Ball.
Yeah, I think in the same way with Dinosaur Planet, they were like, this looks like a good game, but it looks like it could sell twice as much if we just reskinned it as Star Fox, because
I
we
could
haven't had a
totally-
Star Fox game in a
I
while.
could totally see that happening with Metroid Prime 5.
Yeah.
That totally makes sense.
Because there was the interview with Reggie to where after the game was announced at E3, he was like, we know this isn't the Metroid game that fans are wanting, but we're hoping they'll be excited for it anyways, which made you think that since he was saying we know this isn't the one Metroid fans are wanting, that secretly like we do know what they do want and we are also working on that, but we can't announce it yet. And it turns out maybe they were, because of the Metroid 2 remake, Samus Returns or whatever. But anyways, that's the game that Daniel wants in HD. Samus Returns HD, right?
Samus Returns. Yeah, well, yeah, it'd be good.
You know what I
mean,
would wanna-
ideally, you'd take like Zero Mission.
Yeah, I was gonna say
Samus
Metroid
Returns,
Fusion.
Super Metroid and Metroid Fusion, and 4 games in one on one cart. And
Put that on the Super
why
Nintendo
not?
Switch Online service. Was it
Yeah.
Super Metroid?
Super Metroid's on there.
Oh, is
Yeah,
that
it's
already on
already
there?
on
Okay,
Yeah, it was the first thing I did. They announced the online service and played Super Metroid and beat it in 3 hours.
Daniel has a super
And-
long but really good review of Super Metroid on his
I do.
YouTube
It's like
channel.
a 25-minute long video, so I'm not gonna lie to you guys. If I'm ever having trouble falling asleep, I can just put that video on and put headphones in and just doze right off to the sound of my own voice talking about how good Metroid.
That almost sounds like you're just boring yourself to sleep by watching your 25-minute long video.
Sick
That
burn.
might be
Put that in and go to
It
bed.
could,
No,
it could be that, or it could just be that
that
talking about Metroid puts me in such a zen state.
I know what you're saying, because there'll be a bunch of people that'll send messages about this podcast that's like, yeah, like obviously there'll be the things like, yeah, I'll listen to it whenever I'm doing chores or whenever I'm at work or driving to work or working out and stuff, I'll listen to it. But then there's also the people that'll say like, yeah, put it on, I'll put on like the full podcast episodes or the playlist, and I'll just fall asleep listening to it. And like at first it's like, are we that boring? But then it's the compliment
No.
that like they
It's
get.
that I'm invading their dream.
That's it, yeah.
that's it.
And then obviously my answer would just be Zelda games, but give us
We
the
all want
5.
Zelda.
The 3DS was so weird with the Zelda games because it had like the most Zelda games ever released for any Nintendo console, but none of it, like, you can still say that it never had an actual new original traditional Zelda game, because we got
Link Between Worlds, dude.
Link Between
But-
Worlds, yeah. I was
yeah,
gonna
yeah,
say,
but-
even though it was based on Link to Us.
that's the thing though, is like I look at it as like a reimagining instead of, like, it's not a remake, but it's not a new original game. I look at it as a reimagining because it plays like it's halfway between, and that's kind of what it was whenever they were developing it, because Miyamoto wanted to remake A Link to the Past, and like after they had made the world and everything, Aonuma was like, I want to do something new, and they kind of compromised on it. But yeah, it is technically, but if you look at it the way that I do,
Heroes.
what, Triforce Heroes?
That's what it is. Jesse wants
Nah.
Triforce Heroes on Switch.
Yeah, that's what I said for my Zelda collection. That's what I said,
That's it.
because I looked at it in terms of, like, to give it a unique spin, because most people would be like, oh, like Wind Waker, Twilight Princess, Ocarina of Time, Majora's Mask. But I looked at it in terms of how could they make it unique, because if they ever did Ocarina of Time HD, I don't think they would package it in with anything. I think they would look at it in terms of this would sell like
They'd
10
look at
million
with dollar
copies
signs
on
in
its
their
own.
eyes.
Yeah, like, why put it in a package with other games when they could sell it on its own for $60? Like, if they sold Link's Awakening for $60, they'll sell Ocarina of
what?
Time for $70. But with
And we'll buy it.
with my collection, I looked at it in terms of, like, put Triforce Heroes, a remake or a port of Four Swords Adventures, and like give it, because like all of those games was kind of difficult to play with people, the multiplayer, especially with Four Swords Adventures, because everyone needed Game Boy Advances. So like if they used it as a way to rectify all of their odd online Zelda behaviors, then it could be a unique Zelda collection that people might have fun playing. Because it's like, if you don't like Triforce Heroes, then you can play Four Swords Adventures online. If you don't like that, I think like Phantom Hourglass and Phantom Hourglass and Spirit Tracks had their weird online mini games and stuff. I don't know about Phantom Hourglass, but I know Spirit Tracks
It did.
So like those all had like their odd things. But anyways, what is your third 3DS game, Daniel?
Oh, right.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
you had Metroid, Federation Force, and Hey Pikmin. So what's your third
Also, the
3DS?
chat's going crazy over here trying to figure out how they want to address me as a burrito.
Chubrito?
Burrito,
Chublurito?
I like it.
John also thinks I'm gonna evolve into a butter tubes.
No,
Yeah.
you're Mrs. Yeto. It goes along with your Yeti thing. Not Yeti. Chewbacca.
Yeah,
Chewbacca.
Chewbacca's not a
Wookiee? He's a
I.
Wookiee.
It's been
Jesse,
a long
we can't be
day.
friends anymore.
I'm sorry. But yeah, because like she looks like she's always
She's a chewapod. Like a menopod.
Chewapod. Yeah, that works.
You were bad. You were bad.
You're gonna shed into a big
Chukuna,
butterfly
Maybe?
someday.
On the topic of me and my Yeti obsession, I almost bought my husband for $40. It was a $40 cardboard standee. He would have stood perfectly behind
Her
me.
husband's Chewbacca, for those who don't know.
Yeah, just
the
in
chat.
case you're wondering.
She doesn't have a boyfriend and a husband.
Yeah,
She-
they're
she may.
separate entities.
Or
She-
does she?
Yeah,
We don't know.
She has both. One is a disembodied hand that brings.
Well, Daniel
And the other is a
apparently
Wookiee.
has a wife and a bunch of husbandos on the internet. Choops has a bunch of husbandos on the internet as well. So they're out
I do.
there.
No, actually, I have one official internet husband, and the rest of them are children.
Hmm.
Anyways,
Wait,
Daniel,
who's-
what's your third game?
who's your-
Yeah.
Lego.
What's your third
That's way more
favorite game?
interesting.
Is it Lego City Undercover?
No, I'm boring. It's Fire Emblem because I.
Which one?
I mean, all of them. My favorite Fire Emblem game is.
It's a cheap out. You can't.
It is a cheap out. No, my favorite one is Shadow Dragon, but that's on DS, not 3DS. So, since I can't choose that, I'm gonna go with Awakening. Because although you could just put Awakening, what was it? Shadows of Valencia, something like that. Is that what it's called? You put that and then Fates just on, or you could just take a Fates, just put all three on one Switch cart. Because there was like 3 versions of Fates, wasn't there?
Yeah, there was a Conquest, Birthright, and then
that's third one. The third one that was whatever the third one was called. So you could just put all 3 of those on one. Be like the Fire Emblem Fates. It's Nintendo, so they'll just call it like Deluxe, and that's it.
No, they might slap new in front of it.
New Fire Emblem Fates.
That's what they
Fates collection.
That's what in interviews for A Link Between Worlds, Aonuma said that was the potential name for A Link Between Worlds was New A Legend of Zelda. Well, that could have been what he was referring to, but just New The Legend of Zelda, because it was the first game that changed the way that Zelda fundamentally played, which is what their thoughts were whenever they named New Super Mario Bros. Because that was the first one where you didn't have dungeon items, which they brought back for Breath of the Wild, which they could have named it New The Legend of Zelda as well, because it played like a new Zelda.
But you just shouldn't put new in the title of something, because then you get in this weird space where New Super Mario is like 10 years old.
Yeah. And you can play...
It's the oldest New Super Mario Bros.
You can play New Super Mario Bros. On the 3DS and the new 3DS, but then you can only play certain games like Xenoblade that doesn't have new in the title only on the new 3DS.
Mad confusing.
No.
Yeah. So I was joking with Daniel during one of his fabulous streams where he goes through Breath of the Wild, I think you were playing.
Breath of the Wild Wednesday.
That they're not going to release a Switch Pro or a Switch 2. It's going to be called the Switch U. So they're just going to bring that back for people.
2?
No, Switch U.
No, you said
no,
not a Switch Pro,
or
not
Switch
a Switch
2.
2?
Well,
Switch.
Either
they better not call it a Switch.
I don't think that's be good for marketing.
Either works. It's just going to be like
good marketing. At least we didn't call it the Switch 2.
It's going to be an ugly brown color. No, it's going to be yellow and red. It's going to be yellow and red Joy-Con for Winnie the Pooh.
Yeah.
Oh, bless. Oh my goodness.
Yeah. Anyways, since we're going on about 2 hours, maybe we can end it at,
we should do some questions.
right before the 2 hour mark. Yeah, that's the thing. So
we're
everyone, welcome to the Zelda mailbag. If you have any questions that you would like us to answer, it's called Zelda mailbag, but we answer live questions as well. Daniel is an unofficial therapist, so if you have any life questions, relationship advice, he used to work as the Dr. Love in a strip club in Las Vegas, where he was the announcer / bartender. That is
okay. He's so stressed out. Look at it. He messed up his hair. He's stressed out.
Yeah, so if you
come unhinged
he would give backstage relationship advice to all of the dancers, and he gave such great advice. That's how he started his own podcast.
Yeah, but then I gave such good advice. They all quit pole dancing, and
he
the place went out of business.
He used to back in the 80s. He was before Dr. Love, it was Dr. Feelgood. The entire album by Motley Crue was about him.
Yeah,
and
over
the decades, it's now just Dr. Love. But lately he has been going by Capt Bergerson. So
yes, yeah, because I found out my true love was burgers.
The only vegetarian in the world. No, okay. There's some bad ranting. I'm sorry, guys. Whoever had to listen to that.
It's very funny.
That was just filling in time while people had their questions in the chat. So Daniel, do you see any questions that you would like to answer?
Yeah. I like this question. It comes from 𝐓𝐿𝐤𝐥𝐿, who is a supporter of Mr. GamerWithGains' Patreon here. She asked, "Hi all, question for the mailbag. Are there any underrated or underutilized elements, features, or concepts from past Zelda titles that you think should be in Breath of the Wild 2 and improved upon?" It's a very broad question, but underutilized ideas or concepts that you think could be brought back and improved upon. And I'm just going to say right now, the spinner from Twilight Princess.
Yeah, spinner from Twilight Princess.
It's the definition of underutilized. And that item, when I got it, and this is so cool, and it has so much potential, and they're just like, yeah, you go on the rail track.
No, there's the part in like East Hylia, depending on which version of the game you're playing, where you have to get the heart piece. Yeah.
You can go on the wall and get one.
I love that depending on which version of the game you're playing.
If it's flipped or not. If it's east or west, if it's flipped. I know the one he meant.
Yeah, Daniel knows.
What about Skyward Sword, that weird blowy thing they have? You use it
Oh
for
no,
one
that was
dungeon.
in Minish.
Oh, the
Cap.
Gust Bellows.
Yeah.
There was one. There was the Gust Jar in Minish Cap, which was actually pretty well utilized.
Yeah,
And then they
Nintendo
brought it
stole that idea
back.
from Capcom.
But they're opposites, because the Gust Jar sucks air in, and the Gust Bellows blows air out.
Mm-hmm.
So there's just the opposite. Except
See,
the Gust Bellows was completely underutilized. It's just like blue sand. I dusted Pipit's house for his mom.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm like, blow this boss monster out of the sand. It's honestly most utilized in Super Smash Brothers, because you get to blow people off the edge and they get really upset about it.
No, it's the worst item in Smash.
So, Daniel, your husbando in the chat, before we give our answers to it, he mentions his review on iTunes for the podcast, but
I sent that to you, man.
Do you know where you sent it to me at? So we can go ahead and read it.
But I do have it.
Okay.
I think I have a screenshot of it.
If you can read it, that would be great. Because I forgot about the reviews on iTunes.
That was your idea.
Yeah. That is true.
All right. Do we want to finish this question first?
And
then I'll read it out. I've got it here.
Yeah, you can after we all answer the question, you can read it as everyone else is looking for a question in the chat to answer. So again, people in the live chat, if you're watching, give us your questions, especially some aimed towards JJ, our guest. So yeah. What are you doing, Tubes?
What are we doing?
Trying to figure out which side he's on. I realized that my green screen is showing, so he's on my side.
Great.
Yeah. So, Dan, you'll answer. JJ, do you have an answer?
About underutilized
Zelda stuff.
Zelda mechanics or ideas.
Doesn't have to be items or weapons.
You know, I was thinking about, because since we were talking about Link Between Worlds, I was thinking about the idea of like being able to choose some of the items or some of the gadgets and like, you know, stuff that you could, equipment that you could use like in different times. I think that concept could be expanded upon, not necessarily implemented in that same way, but maybe like tweaked for something different for Breath of the Wild 2 or another Zelda game. Because that open-endedness, a lot of people had thoughts about it, and I thought that was pretty cool. And I mean, there's a lot of open-endedness with Breath of the Wild as it is, but like maybe expanding upon that particular idea, whether it's items or something else, like that could be very interesting to go along with the theme or just the overall design, like Breath of the Wild 2.
Yeah, I would like it if they did both, to where like some of the dungeons you would get the dungeon items in, but then there's other dungeons to where you can go into them anytime. But then some dungeons is like you can still go into them anytime you want. It's just you get that dungeon inside the item, or you get the item inside the dungeon. Whereas others, you acquire the items outside, like you do in Breath of the Wild and A Link Between Worlds. So like if they had a mix of it, I would really like that. Because I still like the surprise of getting it. But that's a really good idea, JJ. So, do you have any others that you'd like to see? Any other mechanics? I think they should, like, this might be controversial, but maybe if they brought back the green hat. You know?
What? No. No hats allowed.
All right.
No.
I lost my
I wouldn't
hat,
call it
that's why I'm not
underutilized.
wearing it.
What about the mask from Majora's Mask, if you think about it? Like, not necessarily those types of transformations, but other types of things like masks that have certain abilities that could be implemented to either dungeons or, like, boss fights or something. Like, again, it doesn't necessarily have to change us to, like, a Zora or a Goron, whatever else, you know, but give us other types of abilities. Because remember, in Majora's Mask, we had the chicken mask or the cuckoo mask that allows you to, you know, to do the little parade. Then you had all these other ones that gave you, like, certain, like, personas towards the people that you talk to. Like something along those lines.
I really like that, and they kind of did that. They went too far with it in Triforce Heroes because
With the outfits.
your entire outfit judged what weapon or item you'd be using, and then they kind of brought it back in Breath of the Wild with different outfits and masks and stuff having different stats, but it wasn't as unique as Majora's Mask was, to where like there's nothing in Breath of the Wild lets you dance. So
Shamefully.
it was just normal stat increases that you see in most RPGs. So I really like that. And then if they did make you transform, that would be cool to roll around Breath of the Wild as a Goron, or like swim in all the water as the Zora really fast.
Turn really into the fierce deity. That needs to come back and somehow the fierce deity.
Yeah.
And they only had it for one section of that game. It's like,
and like they give you the mask and outfit and even the sword in Breath of the Wild, but it just does not feel the same.
No. It is not the same.
Choose.
You don't feel the power.
Yeah, isn't that weird? Like its stat bonus that it gives you is it literally makes you like more powerful, to where like you deal more damage, but you still don't feel nearly as powerful as you did in Majora's Mask. But Choobs, what would you like to see brought back besides 𝐓𝐬𝐤 for the Zelda games? The 𝐓𝐬𝐤, the green hat from Capcom's Minish Cap.
How did this question transform?
You were talking about how much you wished you had a hat that talked to you, like Cappy or 𝐓𝐬𝐤, but in real life.
Yeah, like if you had your Chewbacca mask, but it actually spoke to you.
Or it turned you into a Chewbacca.
Yeah. And it went. She was like just
so cool.
Yeah,
and then the whole podcast, we would have to have subtitles for you.
Yeah.
You know, it's actually funny that we started talking about, because Fry Guy actually asked a question about it as well, asking about transformation masks and if we wanted to see them return to a future game. So yeah, like, I get you, but I don't know if there's anything I'd really want to see return. I feel like transformation masks was probably like the most like achievable thing to return. I mean, I'm biased. I want to see Midna return because I love her, but that's all I got.
What about magic spells? Like in Zelda 2, instead of items, you got just a bunch of magic spells.
Funny you mentioned that, because I just did a review for Zelda 2, and I was thinking about that, because like that in that game, magic is very reserved. You don't use it as much as you think. There's only like a few spells that you would use, which you get that same type of stuff in other abilities in other Zelda games. But like having like certain magic that you could use, you know, to like change the environment, to like, you know, open up a certain area, or even to like influence certain like, you know, characters or like monsters or whatever. That might be interesting if they don't go too over the top with it, because again, you have like other items like abilities.
True.
So, JJ, have you noticed how we had two topics on this entire podcast? One was an interview with you. One was just the one news story that we had, and now answering questions. How, like, even between single questions, how many times we get off topic?
We do bad.
So many.
There was there
bunch.
was I just lost it. Where is it? Okay, so Jorge, the same person who posted the drawings of us earlier, I posted on Twitter asking people, like, what topics would you like us to discuss? And he replied saying, anything you want. Each and every of the news/topics will still get derailed by the most random thing, which is awesome.
Yeah.
So
The worst part is that we're even like this person.
I took that as a challenge, though. I was like, well, this podcast, we have a guest that's never been on, so we're going to be professional for him.
So much for that plan.
Yeah.
Yeah, we straight
failed.
failed that one.
Yeah.
But it was good
I
content.
should mention, we
Yeah.
do, Jesse, have two
Yeah,
super chats.
we have
that
two
should
super
address.
chats. Yeah.
So one comes from Marsupial Gamer, good guy John. He says, if Nintendo remade the Oracle games for Switch, what style would you prefer? Link's Awakening, Link Between Worlds, 3D a la Ocarina of Time, Breath of the Wild, or... And I'm just gonna say, I think the Link's Awakening style is very suitable for that kind of adaptation. You know, like you could very faithfully adapt a 2D game into that kind of art style without much compromise. But if you changed it to a 3D style like Ocarina of Times or Breath of the Wilds, because you have to shift the perspective and Link's proportions and everything. Yeah, there's a lot of the design that you couldn't necessarily carry over faithfully, so there might be compromises that would have to be made that way. So
I'm going to say, to make people feel like they would have to buy both of them, to where, like, some people might look at them if they are in the same art style, like, well, like if they don't know what the difference is, like they might assume like it's just like Pokemon, to where it's like, oh, well, there's just like a few different Pokemon and a few different story beats. There's not really anything. Like maybe they assume it's just like, oh, well, there might be like a new dungeon and not a completely different game, which they are. So I would say have one in the Link Between Worlds art style, but in HD, and one in the Link's Awakening art style. That way they give two entirely different play styles, which they are.
There's a sense of cohesion between the two games that you kind of lose, you know?
Yeah.
Like I don't know, they're kind of already I don't know, man. I feel like you gotta keep them together.
Okay.
You know? Maybe I'm just sentimental about these games that I actually haven't played. They're the only Zelda games I haven't played.
They're good. They're very good.
Yeah.
You know, it's funny enough though. I don't think those games would be the said ever since the Link's Awakening remake was announced and released that the original NES Zelda was going to get the next remake. I always felt because that same style could work with that, and I think it's long since past due that game got a certain type of remake. Because obviously, some people look at Link to the Past as like a remake or like a reimagining of like what that classic Zelda game would be like. But I feel like that NES game, like again, because it's so old at this point, and in a way, it kind of archaic compared to everything else, would be great to like reimagine that same story and that same type of, you know, stuff that started up the series in like a modern day, like, you know, approach to game design.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Chips.
And it only had like a remake on the Satellaview. That's
yeah.
it. Otherwise, it's just
was that even
ported
really
over.
considered a remake?
Kind
of.
Yeah.
Kind of, somewhat.
But it's only ever been ported.
It was a similar thing.
Because Super Mario Brothers got remade like a couple times, like the original.
Yeah.
So I know. So like, I feel like Zelda should get that same again. She get some sort of like, you know, remake treatment for the first NES Zelda game.
Yeah.
Because that'd be perfect with that Link's Awakening style. It'd be great.
Yeah, I agree.
Tubes.
No, I was right along with it as soon as Daniel said Link's Awakening, because I was looking at it and I was like, yeah, Link's Awakening. I feel like bringing a 2D game to 3D is it'd be a lot more work than they probably bargained for, so I'd probably keep it 2D. And I like the feeling of like that Link's Awakening. Like, I'm a big fan of that. That's such a good feel, and it's such a classic feel that I'd keep it that way.
Yeah. All right. Daniel, do you have the other super chat?
The other
Yes.
super chat I actually copied somewhere, unless you have it right there.
I mean,
There's
I do.
one from
It's
From
the Hasselhoff.
Hasselhoff.
yeah,
It's not David Hasselhoff, but
Are you sure?
the Hasselhoffs asked, "Do you think Nintendo should embrace the fans' need to have the timeline solved officially, like Nintendo officially filling in the blanks? And
I
if
think
not, at least make it a game
Nintendo's-
trilogy that are a chronological spin-off."
So I was talking to Nintendo Black Crisis about this earlier, who's, for those who don't know, is another Zelda YouTube person. And I mentioned what Zelda, like, same question that Jorge replied to earlier, saying it doesn't matter what we talk about, we're going to get derailed. But Nintendo Black Crisis commented and said that he doesn't like talking about the Zelda timeline. He prefers talking about the malice in Breath of the Wild. And I replied to him saying that I usually don't like talking about the timeline unless someone asks about it, like they need it somewhat explained to them or something. Because I look at the official Breath of the Wild timeline and think that it works perfectly. Like if you've played the games, or even if you haven't and you just read the story of the games and then you look at the way that they have it, it works. Even the few times that they've like had an updated version where they've like changed some things around, like the Oracle games and Link's Awakening and stuff, which are games that they can switch around, like those don't really matter too much. It's still odd that they do change it around when like they don't. Now we know why, because they're releasing a remake to it with Link's Awakening. But at the time, it was like, why would they even bother changing those around? Because like the Oracle games used to happen between A Link to the Past and Link's Awakening. Now it happens after, I think. I don't know how they changed it.
It used to be Link to the Past, Oracle games, then Link's Awakening. Then they switched it, so now it's Link to the Past, Link's Awakening, then the Oracle games. Even though the first way made more sense, in my opinion, but it's
Link's
all those 4 games are the same Link. But
yeah, Link's Awakening story is that he's on his way back to Hyrule from another adventure when he shipwrecks onto the island. So having the Oracle games be that other adventure kind of made sense.
Yeah, especially because at the end of the Oracle games, from what I know from the internet, because I haven't actually beaten them, but you do see Link leave on a raft as well, back to go back to Hyrule.
Conspiracy.
And it's like, it just makes sense.
Yeah. So, anyways, what are we talking about?
Zelda.
The question.
Yeah. No, I know his question, but it's like, what was it? He was talking about the timeline and like clearing up the timeline.
Do you think Nintendo should embrace the fans' need for the timeline officially, or
like
don't they already do so?
Yeah. So Daniel has a video explaining it. So Daniel, a lot of fans think that Nintendo never had a timeline in place or in mind, that they just did it because the fans were asking. Daniel has a really good video on his channel that people can check out where he uses facts. That's very important, that a lot of people in websites and YouTube channels, when they're talking about gaming stuff, they don't use. But it's a 4, sometimes 5-letter F word called fact or facts.
So I just thought when I was writing the script for that video, I was like, research.
Yeah, research.
Yeah, and some people don't do that.
But you use actual interviews from the creators of the Zelda series, to where like after Zelda 1 and they're talking about Zelda 2 and they're like, yeah, well, it just happens sometime after Zelda 1, so it just makes sense. And then with A Link to the Past, which was the 3rd Zelda game, they're like, well, it's called A Link to the Past because it's the 3rd game, but it takes place in the past. So A Link to the Past, it just kind of makes sense. It's a prequel to Zelda 1. And that's that. And then they made Link's Awakening, and they're like, yeah, it's just a sequel to Link's Awakening. So like already, like there's a timeline. And then even with Majora's Mask, or it was either with Majora's Mask or Wind Waker. I forgot what they said exactly, but they're like, yeah, at the end of Ocarina of Time, it ends, and then sometime after that, this game begins, and then it's Aonuma and Miyamoto talking, and then the other one's like, yeah, but, Ocarina of Time, it kind of has, like, 2 different endings, because there's a split there. So, like, even after, like, while they were making Ocarina of Time, from that interview between Aonuma and Miyamoto, like, they had the whole idea of a split timeline in mind. So that wasn't a fan creation that a lot of people thought, that it was just like a big fan theory that Nintendo finally confirmed. Like, from that interview, they were talking about Wind Waker or whatever. Like, they had a timeline in mind.
Every release, they've almost always made some common game falls timeline.
Yeah, even like with Twilight Princess
and things like that. Yeah, even with Twilight Princess, there was an interview that I cited. Aonuma was basically, where he said, oh, well, Ocarina of Time has multiple endings based on, where Link leaves the world off versus Link going back in time, and he basically confirms that timeline split happened.
Yeah.
And that was like 2006. So,
it was like saying it basically takes place around the same time as Wind Waker, but on
this other
separate
timeline.
Endings.
Yeah, exactly. So it's like, basically the gist of the video is that Nintendo, building on maybe things have shifted and changed, but they've always had a timeline from the start of Zelda 1, Zelda 2. That's a timeline already. There's 1 and 2. And then they made a prequel, and then they made a sequel to the prequel, and then they made a prequel to the prequel, and then they made a sequel to the prequel of the prequel.
Yeah. So it's always been kind of confusing, but it's been there.
It's confusing to explain, but they've always laid it out there. So.
Yeah.
Yeah. They just keep going 2 steps back, 1 step forward.
Exactly. But JJ, what are your thoughts on that?
Sounds like they were just winging it straight up. But honestly, I think that they already based it. I think that they've had some sort of game plan as far as kind of keeping things a little bit consistent, or at least giving fans and people that care about this stuff enough to kind of like chew on and follow. But I think they've always embraced like the fans' need for things to kind of all connect and stuff. I mean, if they didn't, we would have never gone Hyrule Historia. We would have never gone things like that. So that's where I stand on it.
Choops.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. Like, they definitely have some sort of plan, because if you think about it, like, we're seeing a lot of the same characters that come through, whereas, when you talk about other games that are, like, big franchises, like Mario, like, there's no storyline there. Mario is collecting stars.
She got kidnapped again.
Mario timeline. Where is that at anyway?
He's jumping on Goombas. Yeah.
Sadly, they do have there is a Mario timeline that is 10 times more confusing than.
No.
You can't have a Mario timeline. I just
don't want to know the Mario timeline. I'm not getting into that.
I should make that video.
When you want to spend the next year of
it's
your
like, well,
life
you see,
research.
Peach gets kidnapped in this game, but in this game, it's Daisy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And in this game, it's Sprixies that get kidnapped.
I feel like there's so much just like story and so much depth that goes on in Legend of Zelda. There's no way that you can't be like, oh yeah, this cool lore thing is going to happen, but it will never connect to anything ever again. Because you're not going to think that far ahead just to throw it into the wind. It doesn't make any sense. They put way too much time, work, and resources and money into these big projects to... What? Are you pointing at me?
I don't know.
Yeah, I'm just pointing at all of us. All of us.
Yeah. Those are my 2 cents.
Cool.
You're here.
JJ, were you able to find a question in the chat?
No, I was not.
Cool. Okay, even better, JJ.
Mm-hmm.
If you could ask one person in the gaming industry, like Miyamoto, Aonuma, whoever, Fujibayashi, I think is like the developer of the Breath of the Wild, whoever the CEO is of Nintendo, whoever the CEO is of Square Enix, just anyone. If you could ask anyone in the gaming industry one question, who would it be and what would you ask them?
Oh, that's a tough one.
Instead of you picking out a question, that's your question.
There's so many
to answer.
Because again, between Miyamoto, between Numa, between Kojima, between was it Taiyasu? Like again, the list goes on. Like insane. Like because there's so many franchises. Ono-san, even thinking about that. Well, technically, no, I can't count Ono-san because I technically already did that. But like, it's just insane, man. I don't know if I can really answer that question because I don't know. Like, I know in my travels, you know, to like E3 and stuff, I've been in the same room with some of these people. Like, some of them I have not gotten to talk to yet, you know, but some of them I have, and I've had asked them a couple questions like here and there, like with Ono, like I mentioned before, because Ono is the producer of Street Fighter. And, you know, I'm a big Street Fighter fan, so talking a little bit with him about just Street Fighter as a franchise is always funny because he was from Street Fighter 4 on. Yeah. But, you know, to be able to sit in a room with Kojima and be like, listen, you know, were you really thinking about things being that weird or that deep when you were making Metal Gear Solid or Metal Gear Solid 2? Like, stuff like that, you know. Yeah, I could easily say that, but then I would love to have a conversation with Miyamoto and be like, did you really think you were trying to make the perfect game when you made Super Mario Brothers? Like, you know, things like that. It's very hard to pick one thing. I don't think anybody could really pick one thing because as soon as you think of that, there's all this other stuff you want to get focused
on. I like it.
Indecisive. Indecisive.
Well, it's the truth because it's like if you only have one question, who are you gonna ask? Like, there's so many people.
Make it count. That's too hard. That's a hard choice.
Yeah. Like I always joked around that, like with Miyamoto or Aonuma, like I would just have Breath of the Wild and then their official timeline they made because they never gave it a placement, and I would just be like, just point. Like, you don't have to say anything. Just, like, point. Which one of the three is it?
No, Miyamoto, he'd give you one of these.
Yeah, exactly. He'd point up off the
blink
page.
once of this, blink twice of this.
You do the little claw point.
Oh, so Hylian Luke has a question.
Gluking us. He's gluking us with the super chat.
Oh, yeah. Tubes, do you want to read it?
All right. Hylian Luke is throwing down... With the dark themes coming to Breath of the Wild 2, do you think it's possible Dark Link will return in this game and play a big role in the story?
It'd be cool as a cameo, or as cool as like a small thing, a nod.
Yeah, I think that would be a cool thing to include.
I don't think it's a big part of the story, though. I think that they're going in other ways and other stuff, but that'd be a cool nod.
Me, personally, thinking about dark themes and the direction that I'd love for it to go, I know that we kind of went over it like concept art. We went over all that weird, spooky, like nightmare concept art, like billions of podcast episodes ago, and that is something that I would love to see incorporated because you guys know I'm all about. I'm the spooky type. I like that dark theme. I like feeling sad at things. That's the kind of person I am. No, the Gorons aren't going to punch me for it. Still happy. I just like feeling sad. Okay.
They are gonna punch you for not loving life enough.
Yeah, we already.
They're gonna do it.
We already stated it's a fact. Miyamoto may as well have called Daniel and been like, "Hey, if this chick's being serious, tell her she's gonna get knocked out.
She's gonna get Goron punched right in her face.
She's gonna get Megaton hammered.
I'm gonna die." But yeah, anyways, that's how I personally feel about it. I'm very much like I really hope that it takes the dark theme that we're kind of sensing from just the little bit that we've gotten so far. Hylian Luke, why? Anyways, and your guys' takes on that.
As long as it's not forced. I think it'll be cool. They also during that same interview said a lot of the developers were inspired by Red Dead Redemption 2. And
so does that mean that a lot of people are gonna die? Because
I don't know. Maybe it's gonna have like another.
That's what that means.
Maybe it's gonna have another Western style minigame like Twilight Princess.
that's all they mean.
No, it just means that Breath of the Wild 2 is secretly moonlighting as Link's crossbow training too.
No.
Oh my gosh. Maybe all they mean is you get to ride a horse. Finally.
Maybe.
Finally, a
there's
Zelda
more
game
sand.
where I can ride a horse.
There's more sand.
Gasp.
Or maybe they could bring back like actual guns and stuff. God. kind of like Twilight Princess, where that guy had a bazooka out of nowhere, and it's like, if you had this the whole time, why didn't you give this to Link when he was going to all these dungeons?
Yeah, for real.
Yeah. Or like, if the powder kegs existed in all of the Zelda games, just have all your Goron buddies grab a powder keg and go into the dungeons with you.
Yeah, there you go.
Or
blow some stuff up.
Big Goron on top of Death Mountain in Ocarina of Time. It gives you the big Goron sword. Whenever Ganondorf's coming up to like kidnap all the Gorons and resurrect 𝐓𝐽𝐽𝐤, he could have just like picked up 𝐓𝐽𝐽𝐽 and like flossed with them, or like flicked Ganondorf away.
Just chucked it at him.
But Ganondorf got him out of the way by sprinkling volcano dust.
Oh yeah, he was blind.
Yeah, he couldn't do much.
Ah, Nintendo thinks of everything.
They did. They thought of it.
Mm-hmm.
Sprinkle that volcanic ash and.
Yeah. All right. So, do we have a final question? Can someone pick out the last question to go out on?
And then I gotta read that review.
Yeah,
Yes.
read the review really quick.
All right.
And then Choobs can pick out a question.
I had this sitting on my phone until we were ready. Okay. This is a review. iTunes from Denny, who's in the chat here. This is hands down the best Zelda podcast. You can clearly tell that these guys know what they're talking about and love doing it. They're great fun. I'm not a person who enjoys listening to most podcasts, but this one can always entertain me through its whole length, which is saying a lot because these can go on. These can go on.
Tell them. That's what I'm talking.
If you haven't already, definitely give this group of friends a chance. If you're a Zelda fan, you won't be disappointed. Very interesting, much fun. 11 out of 10. P.S. This is
No, P.S. what?
This is P.S.
You cut out
Daniel is pure treasure and should be protected costs.
Yeah.
Jenny, one step ahead of you. I already protect this man.
That's true.
That's true.
They both
Talking
live
about a guy
together.
that won't leave my side at night. 4 a.m. The guy's gonna lay on the floor beside me. Want to go to bed?
Well, I was,
Don't leave me to die.
Wow.
that is a true story.
Oh man.
I also was laying on the floor, being protected.
Jesse needs protection.
Ew.
We love him.
Such a heartfelt review. I love the reviews. Y'all are
Yeah.
awesome.
Mm-hmm.
All right,
11 out of 10.
do we have the final question to go out on?
I do.
I
have
love
my-
that I said that like we can have a few questions and get done before it hits 2 hours, and it's on like 2 hours and 15 minutes right now.
My bad. Sorry.
Okay. This was kind of on my sad topic. If y'all are paying attention to my sad girl vibes today, I don't know what's wrong with me. No trick, no cheat. I think this is Retro Cheats. Asks, what is your saddest moment in a Zelda game? Did it make you cry? For me, it was Breath of the Wild, where Zelda saved Link. All podcast members, all of you guys have to answer. So for me, I briefly mentioned in chat the part where Zant decides that he's going to ruin Midna's life, and she turns that weird color, that weird pinkish color, and you know that she's gonna die. And then Zelda goes, "It's okay, let me just do whatever I'm gonna do." But I don't care about Zelda. I don't. Just seeing Midna lifeless like that, and the sad music that it plays the entire time until you
Midna's
get to the
lament.
castle to bring her there. I can't with that part. Anyways, that's my part.
Yeah. Daniel, you got all of your love in that review, but Jorge says Jesse is senpai material. So I have one.
Oh yeah.
I have one person who is pro Jesse instead of pro Daniel.
No, we all love you, Jesse. You know that.
No, so
We all love you.
I would
That's why this
say
channel's Game Over Jesse.
it's just because I didn't know you guys at the time.
Because we love you.
No, there was one person that was like, so when are you going to change it from Game Over Jesse to Game Over Everyone?
Just make your channel game over.
everyone.
No, but make it game over, comma, everyone.
They see us at E3 and they go, "Oh my gosh, it's game over, everyone!"
Yeah. No, so the saddest Zelda moment, I would say, so there is like the weird moments in Majora's Mask, like after
same one I'm thinking of.
Well, there's a couple, but like after the ranch is abducted, and then like it's just like the girls there and they're all sad and stuff, and then but the one that really comes to mind is like the father and the daughter in Icona Valley, and there's like the mummies and stuff. Especially now that I'm a father and I look at it, I'm like, oh, that is sad. Like if I was trapped in the closet, all mummified and stuff. Like, yeah.
I'm just glad he didn't eat his kid.
Yeah.
I'm just saying that would have been a pretty terrible plot twist.
Yeah.
Zombies, man.
Funny enough, that wasn't the one I was thinking of.
Okay.
Oh.
What are you going with?
The one I was thinking of from Majora's Mask was the Cafe and Anju.
Oh,
at the very
yeah.
end, right when things are done, you complete the quest and they reunite, but the world is or Termina is pretty much done.
Yeah.
Like the moon's coming down. That's sad. Like really sad. Like you just realize like that's your beloved, but like with everything that's happened, but like this is about to happen to you.
Oh,
to me, that was like super sad.
So that's a good pick, and because they're like they embrace and they're just like we'll face the end together, and it's like they know.
Yeah, because you have to
go.
You literally have to give her the note to let her know to stay.
Yeah,
and then she stays and dies. Unless you beat Majora, though. If you beat Majora, then it is a happy ending. Yeah. But I remember like, I think I talked to Daniel about that side quest, but then my little brother was playing through Majora's Mask. And I didn't remember everything you had to do exactly. And he would call multiple times a day. And I would have to talk him through like every single step. And then he would miss something. And he'd be like, I have to do it again? All of it? On the first day?
Restart it.
I'm like, yeah, you got to do everything again.
That's a long quest.
It is. And you have to do it twice if you want to get 100%.
Yeah.
It's brutal. But
I learned
what
that
I used to do
quest.
as a kid is I would go and like we're going to fight the final boss because I didn't want to reset it after doing all the work.
Mm-hmm.
So that would be like the last side quest I do, and then like go and then fight the final boss after while they're reunited, save the world.
So take us out on it. What is your saddest moment, Daniel?
Well, since you guys took all the good ones,
well, that's just from Majora's Mask. You have like 30 plus years of Zelda games to pick from.
I know, but Majora's Mask has all the good ones. Probably Skyward Sword. The moment where Zelda sort of, I don't know, traps herself in like the weird chrysalis thing. And there's a gut-wrenching moment there where Link is like, no, I finally caught up to you. Like you spend this whole game like getting chastised by
you're just like shit.
Like,
wait 2 minutes.
You
I could come with you.
Yeah, you do all this dungeon. You're like, yeah, I'm like super cool, and then Impa's like, you messed up, man. You gotta hurry your ass up. You did bad. And I'm like, man.
It's because she knows her future self has like probably told her, been like, hey, this dude, he's useless. Like he doesn't do anything. You got to get out there and go. Like
that part hurt too, because it was also like Zelda admitting, like, I did you dirty. I have been pulling you along. I have been just guiding you by the hand for my own selfish deed. And you know that she's going to do it because she does it every time. But it's just like, Link had such a normal life of sleeping in and doing what Link people do.
Mike also worked on that game. The same fan that I mentioned on Kid Icarus. He also worked on Skyward Sword, which is why I originally got to know him and talked to him, interviewed him. But he also wrote for like IGN, and he went on to do like the Tonight Show and other stuff. But anyways, you probably know him as well if you know him, JJ Mike Drucker.
Yes, I know Mike Drucker.
So anyways, in that moment that Daniel's talking about, there's a part to where after you find everything out, you realize like there's like the boulder that's blocking the path to get to Zelda, where she's like slumbering
There's
and
like the
everything.
doors, yeah.
And you can see through the crack. There's like the gemstone in the background to where she's being, like sacrificing herself or whatever. There's more from your husbando, Daniel. Do you want to read it? It's a good one to go off of since we've got everything answered.
Oh, but yeah, you can go back even like when you restart the game, beginning of the game. It's pretty cool detail. But I digress. Denny in the chat here says, "Thanks for podcasting today, guys. It's very fun." And he super chat us 50 Czech Kronos. Thank you, my friend, for tuning in to our very fun podcast.
Nice.
It's staying up till he's in Czech Republic, so it's probably like 6 a.m. for him. He's probably just pulled an all-nighter.
Yeah, he's at 6 a.m.
He's pulled an all-nighter just to watch this.
Yeah.
Or either that or he woke up really early.
That's the crazy part for me is whenever sometimes we'll start at like midnight or 1 a.m. At least for me, it'll be like 11, 10 o'clock for Daniel and Tubes. But for everyone else, it's like various hours throughout the night. And then like we'll start when it's like midnight for me, but then we'll go for like 2 or 3 hours. And there's still, like now there's 20-something people, but sometimes there'll be like upwards of 100 people watching. And I'm like, why? Why are you guys watching? Why aren't you sleeping?
Go to bed!
Yeah. So thank you, everyone. Thank you, Tubes, Daniel, JJ, for those who have tuned in late. Of course, this is going to go up as like edited versions throughout the week. And we'll have everything in the description for everyone to find all of your Twitter and YouTube and everything for them to check out. But for those that are tuned in late right now, they're just like, who's this guy? I haven't seen him before. Why don't you go ahead and
so
let them...
Who's that
Yeah.
guy?
Did
He's
he
got
and,
those eyebrows.
did he and
Yes,
Jesse
those
forget to
anime
shave?
eyebrows.
What's going on? But yeah, so because of you, senpai, says Jorge. I imagine he's talking about you, Daniel. Earlier it was me, but now I'm leaning more towards Daniel. But anyways, JJ, where can people find you again? A brief update on what it is that you do and what they can
Sure.
find you. Give them the elevator pitch.
So I'm a lot of places, but for anybody that's just coming in now that doesn't know who the heck I am, I'm 𝐓𝐻𝐿𝐢𝐭𝐭𝐞𝐫. You call me JJ. I do a lot of different things in the games industry. You know, I'm a games media, games journalist person, but also content creator. I make a lot of content online. I have a YouTube channel here that you guys could check out. Everybody in the chat is more than welcome to check out my channel. It's youtube.com/GamersWithGains channel, or you could search Jake James Lugo in the search bar. I do reviews, I do podcasts, I do vlogs, I do convention coverage that you guys will definitely get a kick out of. And for you Zelda peeps out there, like I mentioned earlier, I reviewed Zelda 2 not too long ago on NES. And again, there's a lot of other great games, you know, Nintendo or otherwise, that you guys should check out. I also am on Twitter, twitter.com/JakeJamesLugo. I post stuff all the time on there, gaming related. I'm on Instagram, instagram.com/GamersWithGains. Again, I have a Patreon, patreon.com/JakeJamesLugo. I do exclusive content over there. And then also I write. I do a bunch of writing for thecoalition.com where I write reviews. I do unboxing videos. I do editorials, you know, about games. I do interviews with different games industry people. I do a lot. I also stream on Twitch, twitch.tv/GamersWithGains. And again, I'm all over the place. You could find me all over the place doing a ton of gaming content that, again, if you guys check it out, I'm sure you'll be able to find something you'll love, you'll dig, you know, and just let me know about it. Let me know if you guys really like it.
Yeah, I posted a link to his Twitter on the chat, the live chat there for people that want to check that really quick. He has links to everything else in his Twitter description, I believe. So, Daniel, where can people find you?
Oh, well,
Canada.
Canada is where they can find me.
Raking
That's
all
a
the
country I
maple
live in.
leaves.
That's right, raking them in. So you could find me on...
Wait, is this true?
Where?
I need to
What?
ask her. No, is this true? We make all the maple leaf jokes. But I was told by another Canadian who shall not be named that your money may or may not have a scratch and sniff maple leaf.
It doesn't. It's an urban.
That's the
does
biggest
not.
lie.
It does not.
But it does have a maple leaf.
That's like
Like a
if I
picture of
take a US dollar bill and I scratch it, I'll smell the last 10,000 people that held it.
Usually it's
and
drugs. If you
cocaine.
smell
But
it,
it-
you can
Yes,
smell the
it's
drugs.
Yo, maple syrup is pretty dope.
Um,
I'm just saying.
No, but our pennies. Before we stopped using pennies,
They were maple.
they
syrup.
had
They
a
were
picture of
made
a
from maple
leaf.
leaf. They were
They-
hardened maple syrup.
That's correct. Yes, and I think our 50s have a maple leaf on them as well.
Okay.
Dollar bills.
I haven't seen a 50 in a really long time.
We usually
Come on, how
put
much
the
money do you
leader
got?
of the country, like past leaders of the country, on our money.
Yeah, we've got that too, and the Queen now is on a bunch.
Oh,
of
we
stuff.
we have Haida designs on ours. Aboriginal.
That too.
Yeah.
And just a lot of angry old white guys too. On that.
All right, finish
So
what you were
so
saying.
mad.
Dan.
Anyways, go
Sorry.
ahead.
I just had to
Ah.
ask about I needed to know if my special Canadian informant was telling the truth.
Your Canadian informant. That's
Yeah.
me. I'm gonna change my handles. What they currently are to Canadian informer.
Oh, yeah.
But yes, I'm Daniel. You can find me on all platforms, so YouTube, Twitch, Instagram, Twitter, as Capt Burgerson, CaptBurgerson, and I stream on Twitch twice a week, usually Tuesdays and Wednesdays. Wednesdays are reserved for Breath of the Wild Wednesdays, and if I just do like the odd video here and there, try and do at least one channel, just like whatever topic I feel like, and if you're really like curious about when I go live or you just want up, my Twitter is really the best place where I post all that, as well as just nonsense if you really want. Otherwise, if you just really want to say hi, you active on Jesse's Discord, so you can always just ping me and say hi there. So that's me.
Tell me, Daniel,
Yes.
do
I'll
you
tell you.
are you a fan of this game? Are you
I've never
spending
played World of Warcraft?
Are you spending
No.
most of your time playing World of Warcraft?
No.
Because I have
I'm
like
not.
a bunch of these boxes that I found of like
I didn't put them there.
4
It
or
wasn't-
5 DVDs each that you had to put in
Wasn't
from like
me.
3 different boxes.
Nope.
So
Do yourself a
I
favor,
didn't do
Jesse,
it.
and just run really far. Burn those boxes and run.
I had a
like-
friend in high school who played Warcraft, and I saw how addicting it was, and I thought, man, I'm already addicted to Tetris. I don't need
nice.
this new drug called WoW.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Tubes, where can people find you? In the malls of Canada?
Oh,
Trying to get kids
no.
addicted
the
to
Best
Nintendo?
Buys of Canada.
Yeah, if
And
you guys
you know,
need
you do
me, I'll
have-
be at 𝐓𝐷𝐿games for the next 10,000 Saturdays. I'm officially
Yeah.
working 6 days a week. I have, with
Nice.
the exception of 2 weeks in December, that I'm working 7 days a week because I will be at Nintendo on
But
the
don't you
weekend,
already
so if
have
you
a
need
full-time
me-
job?
I
Bounce
do.
off.
I have a full-time
Work.
job.
Yeah,
So if you guys need me,
You're talking
I'm
about
dead.
sorry.
What?
I was gonna say you're talking about JJ and Josh working like 24/7, and then here you have a full-time
So
job.
they're making the rupees.
You
making
have
the
a you have a full-time job. You stream and do the podcast and your other online stuff, but then you're also working for Nintendo 6 days a week.
Yeah, that's my bad. But yeah, so I will be quite busy and occupied with Nintendo for the next season here because we're rolling into Christmas. Lots of really important sales to be pushing. And other than that, I haven't streamed in a really long time. I've been really bad at that, so we'll see what happens. I've been trying to sort out some things in my personal life, so let's see if I can get that going. But otherwise, come hang out with me on Twitter. I tend to tweet a lot there for some reason at 𝐓𝐷𝐿ima.
All right.
You can find me anywhere at 𝐓𝐷𝐿ima. Add me on RuneScape. 𝐓𝐷𝐿ima.
Except for Twitch, which is Chublima.
Oh, there's
Oh yeah. For Twitch, it's 𝐓𝐷𝐿ima. 2 A's at the end.
there's a Brooklyn Nine-Nine joke in the chat that I don't understand, but I want to.
It's a reference to "Oh Canada, you home of Sucky." Reference to the episode of Brooklyn Nine-Nine in which Jake's dad gets arrested in Quebec when he's framed for smuggling drug border.
I recently watched through the entire season, not the entire season, the entire series 1.5 times. Which season was this?
I don't remember. I've rewatched the whole show so many times. Blur. It's my favorite show though.
I
feel
that's
the
weird.
origin of this hoodie. I bought this hoodie for my Jake Peralta Halloween costume.
Oh, that's what it is. Bomb. See, I get weird when I see the episodes when they're not together, and I'm like, they're gonna get married, but they're like hooking up with other people. Someone should tell them not to do that because they're gonna be together soon.
They don't know that yet.
Yeah,
they figured it out.
That's why those episodes are weird for me.
Show.
But
such a good show though.
Yeah, I am just at 𝐵𝐴𝐺𝐸 everywhere. I got very, very lucky, except on PlayStation Network where someone took it before I could. So one day. But I have the _Jesse, so I guess that works. So yeah, thank you Peralta, thank you JJ, thank you 𝐓𝐿𝐼𝐬 for joining. Everyone, please go check out GamerWithGains. Some of it's Gamers with Gains.
Gamers with Gains. Yeah, it's got the S. Because GamerWithGains is actually gone to Chris because she has the same similar name to me.
Really?
She has a similar. Funny enough, we've met in person. Like finally, like I should talk to the person this year. But we have like the same Instagram name, which is funny.
That's really funny because I just actually owned this though.
Yeah, she gave me one of those when I saw her. She really cute little index card.
Yeah, I didn't know what they were. Like, I thought they were actual Smash invitations.
Like Smash invitations. Yeah. I was like, oh my god, I've been
No, because everyone was talking about
I'm the next fighter.
No. Everyone that I was talking to was like, oh no, I got invited to this party or whatever, and I even got invited to a party that I ended up not even going to. It was at
I wanted to go so bad.
Not Ubisoft, the Bethesda conference. I was sitting behind. What was his name?
Grimecraft. The one from this year, right?
Yeah, I was sitting behind Grimecraft.
Oh, and Grimecraft. I love Grimecraft.
He sent me a Twitter message and was like, "Hey, I'm playing at this party, but like there's a secret invite code. It was like Flareon or something. Yeah. Unless you have a time machine, it doesn't matter. But the password to get in, it was like an exclusive thing. I think it was Flareon.
I remember this.
But we weren't able to go. So
man, you should have came. It was lit. He's dope.
What was the thing?
It was like him DJing at like.
No, I know that, but like what? I don't know why I mentioned that. Because
it got to Chris.
Yes. So he was talking about like, oh, here's this invitation to this thing I'm doing later. Here's the password and stuff. I was like, oh, that's cool because it's like the person that's like doing the whole thing or whatever. Mm-hmm. And everyone else that I talked to was like, yeah, I'm going to this thing. Like when we were talking to Holly, or we went out to dinner with Holly a couple of times, and she's like, even one of the nights she like came over to the Airbnb that we were at. And she kept on talking about these parties and stuff she was being invited to. And other people were talking about parties they were being invited to. And then, Grimecraft invited me to the one party. So then Daniel's telling me, like, yeah, going to Chris is giving out invitations to Smash Bros. And I'm like, there's a Smash Bros party? I want to go. And then, like, and then
I was like, no, you've been drafted to Smash.
And then we get the invitations. God, and I'm like... we get the invitations, and I'm like, oh, it's just like it's a cool thing for her friends. Like it's not an actual.
It's cute. It's cool. Really cute.
Yeah, it's a party in your heart.
Next time you come to E3, you got to come to the parties that I went to, because I went on an adventure. Put it this way, this year's E3, and I saw everybody.
Was changed. He's a changed man.
I wasn't a changed man, but let me tell you something. I felt like Indiana. Like because he
was running away from boulders.
You don't understand. Like every night there was something going on, like after E3 and stuff. And every night I would go someplace and I would see different people, and it would always be a crazy fun adventure. It was amazing. It was awesome.
Yeah.
I got 3 words for you: Bethesda open bar.
Oh yes. Why? You remember this? This was amazing.
I wasn't there.
They had to pick me up.
So
Jesse went
They had to
my
pick me
gosh.
up
You know what I'm
from the
talking
thing.
about?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, it was
Like
good.
they came and got me, and I'm like, "Do you want to play Doom? We can go back and play Doom."
We got Doom right here next to this open bar and this free food. Yes,
Oh my
yes, I would like to
gosh.
play
Give
Doom.
him a list of drinks to try. He drank all of them.
Yes,
Yeah,
that's what
I
you're
called
supposed
no,
to do.
I video chatted with them, and I'm like, "Hey, I just got like a normal like vodka and Coke, but what do you guys recommend?" And like everybody in the room recommended something, and I went and tried it.
So he
You got
tried 'em
everything.
all?
That's how you're supposed to do it, Jesse.
Gotta
That's how you're
catch
supposed
'em
to do it,
all.
son.
Yeah, so I was having a good
Oh.
time. Like I was chatting up with Grimecraft,
Well,
whoever
invited
this
me
guy
there,
was
that
that
was
was
so much
beside
fun.
me, and they were all having drinks, and I'm like, this is a good time. Like they got Doom on a 500-inch TV with all that metal music playing, and
That
I'm
was
just
amazing.
like, this is good. Like you're 3 rows back. I don't feel like
Dude,
I
the
belong,
food
but
they
it's all
had there
good.
was off the chain. They literally had like a giant bar. That's what it was. It was amazing.
Yeah. But anyways, everyone, thank you for watching.
Yes.
Thank you for tuning in to that little after party there with.
It's our podcast after party live.
I love how Tubes was referring to my adventure with the Bethesda open bar, and then you're just like, yes.
Yeah.
Oh.
Next time you come into parties with me.
Yeah.
You want to talk about the was it Zelda: The Adventure of Link? Oh my! It's gonna watch. You're gonna come back.
Zelda,
Yeah,
the
Jesse,
adventure
what
was
happened?
lit.
Yeah. All right. So, anyways, good night, everyone. Thank you for tuning in. The 11 of you that are staying here with us, and yeah, Tubes, Daniel, JJ, thank you guys.
Thank you, Jesse,
All
for
right.
bringing us all
Appreciate it.
together.
3, 2,